Welcome to the February 12th, 2025 meeting of the Nevada Irrigation District. This is an auspicious meeting as we will be bidding farewell to our beloved Doug Roderick. Meanwhile, let's rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, you take the roll, please.
It's Division 1.
Here.
Division 2.
Here.
Division 3.
Here.
Division 4.
Present.
Division 5.
Here.
Okay, under special orders, the first one is item 3A, resolution of appreciation upon retirement for Doug Roderick. Jen, are you taking this?
We are, but I believe we had public comment first.
Oh, you're right. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped that. Okay. Sorry, everyone. We'll take public comment for any items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anyone out there in Zoom land? No? Okay, seeing none, we will then move to special orders, resolution of appreciation upon retirement for Doug Roderick.
Well, we can't start this without Doug coming.
Hard words to say. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, that would be great.
And we understand there's great fishing near your area, your
No.
new home.
Nope.
Thank you.
Ice fishing. So it's with great honor that we have this opportunity to recognize Doug Roderick. As the board knows or may not know, he has been with the district since 2004. And so one of the things a lot of people don't realize about selecting kind of your chief engineer for a district is that it's probably one of the most difficult positions to fill. And that's typically because not all engineers are created equal. All engineers tend to be very type A and very aware of all the rules and very good at infrastructure, but there's
Doug is neither one.
Exactly.
a special attribute that is extremely rare to find, and that's one that's also logical and practical. While maintaining their commitment to the district, they also are able to provide real practical advice on risk and what we should do and not do without just wanting to over design and over engineer everything. A lot of engineers, they put their engineer hat on and, you know, they have a lot of responsibility for their professional engineer license as well as their stamp. We've heard lots about over the years. And sometimes that can get in the way of making logical, practical decisions. So when I first joined NID, Doug was in the acting role. And it only took me a couple of months to come to the conclusion that there was no reason for him to be acting, and it was in the best interest of the district for him to be the permanent director. I think the only downside was that we only had him as the permanent director for a couple of years. But in my opinion, he is by far one of the best that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of real fabulous engineers. I have always trusted Doug's professional opinion. And something the board might also not know is that Doug has a nickname around here, and it's
Ooh.
Sunshine. And it's not probably for the reasons why you think, but it's because
I'm bright
Doug-
and cheery.
because he's bright and cheery, but it's because he is a great devil's advocate. So even when we're making decisions that we think that we're on the right track on, Doug has always took it upon himself to really push us to ensure that we're making the best decision. And often that sometimes comes with him, or most times comes with him being the devil's advocate, which I have appreciated. The district is only as good as we are that challenge each other. And Doug has always been very good at that. So before we get much further, in honor of Doug's tradition, I have a few fun facts. So Doug started in 2004. And does anybody know who won the World Series that year? Anyone?
Hopefully not the Dodgers.
Giants.
Yeah, that's another reason why I like Doug. He's also a Giants fan.
Yes.
That was Boston Red Sox. First win since 1918. Doug's favorite song, I'm sure till this day, what was the #1 song
Wasn't Taylor Swift.
It was not Taylor Swift, but it might be along those lines. It was My Boo by Usher and Alicia Keys.
My boo.
Another, who can guess what famous or infamous person went to prison that year? Martha Stewart. Let's see. Oh, this is a fun one for all of us Giants fans in the room. Who hit a no-hitter?
You mean pitched?
Who pitched a no-hitter?
I was gonna say, that's a tough one.
Matt Cain?
Matt Cain. Would have been,
2004.
no, I guess not.
Kind of scraggly hair.
He's a Jeopardy.
Skinny guy.
Oh, Lincecum. No?
Randy Johnson.
Oh, the
Oh.
big unit.
The big
He was a
huge.
short time giant.
Oh, we
Never heard that one before.
Well, that's what they called him.
And another fun Giants fact, Barry Bonds hit his 700th home run.
Hmm.
And who can say who it was off of? Tor? Barry Bonds, who did he hit his 700th home run off? Oh, I had a prize for this one.
Oops.
Jake Peavy from the Padres. And then one last one that we thought was fun is Naomi did a little research project. So we wanted to see if we had any employees, current employees that were born in 2004. And we did. We had
Oh, that's awesome.
and that is our very own Safety Cindy's son. Yeah, Zach. So I know that Greg wanted to say a couple of things, but Doug, thank you for all of your help in caring about the district and keeping us in line when we make decisions. And the other fun thing about Doug that a lot of people may not realize is he's one of all of our favorites because he probably is the funniest one amongst all of us.
It is.
So his humor has lightened our moods on many occasions.
So I'll be quick, and then it sounds like we have a lot of incredible staff and a lot of people that have worked for Doug and with Doug over the years. So by all means, if there's anybody that wants to stand up and say a couple jeering remarks or nice remarks about Doug, whichever one you prefer, today you feel free to say so, as well as with the board as well. But personally, Doug, when I came on board, you were not the chief engineer at the time. However, the assistance that you have provided to my office and the work that we've done in the past has been instrumental and monumental, and I appreciate everything. And as Jennifer says, the voice of reason, or the one who is always willing to find the opposite side of what you think might be right. Doug brings a stance of almost to an annoying level of, well, did you think about it this way? So from the perspective, and as you came on board as the interim chief engineer, as I was at interim general manager for that period of time, it was extremely helpful, and thank you. And I appreciate everything that you've done for this district. And so, I don't know who is going to take me to lunch anymore, but I'll find somebody that'll buy my lunch, and it won't be through a drive-through. Absolutely, Doug. Thank you, and good luck in everything that you are moving into.
And
Great.
Yeah.
before we invite anybody else up, I did want to recognize somebody I think who probably doesn't get enough credit. As the board and staff know, we're only as good as the support that we receive at home. And so we also have Kara Roderick here. This is Doug's wife, and I know she keeps them in line for us. And so a great employee only is good. Kara. Oh. He's also a Mussel expert.
Oh, yay.
And we have already reserved our right to Doug, even though he doesn't know this, he already signed the contract that we spoke about Kara about insider muscle knowledge whenever we.
Muscles.
Not those muscles. We don't care about those. And I know
Yeah.
we have another special guest here who wanted to say a few words. Andy, would you like to?
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board, Andy LAFCo, General Manager at Placer County Water Agency. So Doug and I have known each other what seems like a lifetime. Another time and place we worked together. And when Doug decided to come up to NID, I thought, what does he know that I don't know? And shortly thereafter, I came to PCWA. And so Doug and I's career sort of tracked together. And so Doug and NID, of course, are tremendous partners for Placer Water. We share service areas. We work together closely. We serve many of the same citizens and many of the same communities. Our systems are intertied and overlapped, and a large part of the success of the last 20 years has really been around making sure that we can serve the public efficiently, that if NID needs to serve a neighborhood because it's closer to their system, we work that out, and PCWA is the same. And so in the spirit of partnership, Doug has been a tremendous asset for your district, but also for PCWA. And I just want to say how much I appreciate his friendship and his professional attitude over the years, and congratulate him on his retirement. I may drive by and visit him when I'm in Montana this fall. So Doug, congrats. Thank you.
Very
Thank you
nice.
for the opportunity.
Thank you, Andy. It begins.
Wrote mine out because it's very important to get the speech right for the Roderick roast. Yeah, I know, me too. All right, so, I did write this out and I was having trouble of thinking what to say to recognize Doug in his retirement. And then I thought, well, let me channel Doug. And what would he tell me as I'm writing this speech down? And he'd look at me straight in the eye and he'd say, Chip, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. I've heard that many times. I said, well, that's not going to work. So maybe I'll do some corny engineering jokes, like normal people believe that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. An engineer believes that if it ain't broke, it doesn't have enough features yet. Or better yet, to the optimist, the glass is half full. To the pessimist, the glass is half empty. To an engineer, the glass is twice as large as it should be. But in all seriousness, Doug doesn't fit the mold of a typical engineer like Jennifer stated. He's not a number crunching guy, and perhaps that's because he hates math. Don't know why you picked this career choice, Doug. But seriously, over the last 20 years, I've had the pleasure of working with Doug, and more closely really within the last 10 years. And what I appreciate the most about Doug is he always does his homework on all of his projects. He meets with the teams. He wants to understand what the needs of each project are, and then he implements them into his efforts. And operations, maintenance, and even hydro are all the beneficiaries of his work. It ends up with projects that are streamlined, efficient, easy to operate, and easy to maintain. So we really do appreciate him for all of that. And as I look back on his career, he's done many, many projects. I just thought I would highlight a couple of the big ones real quick. Combi North Powerhouse, probably the first district NID engineer to do a tear down and rebuild of a powerhouse since the Yuba Bear project. So that's very impressive. The Cement Hill treated water line extension. So that was a very large project that brought treated water to a much needed area in the North Bloomfield Cement Hill area. Involved a pump station, tanks, and treated water mains. So that was a big project for NID and much appreciated by the community. Banner, Taylor, and Altasia reservoir retrofits. We used to have these earthen treated water reservoirs subject to vandalism and leakage and all the above. Doug came in, tore those out, put in fortified concrete storage tanks for 13 million gallons of treated water storage. So much better situation there. Hemp Hill Fish Passage. This project became very complicated. Work in a protected year-round stream is never easy. However, in the end, it got done. The new diversion is working well, and the salmon are now enjoying 6 additional miles of spawning habitat. So that's pretty awesome. Combi Phase 1 pipe. Everybody's probably heard Doug's dream was to build a tunnel.
Yeah.
Well, the Phase 1 pipe is pretty doggone close. It's an 8-foot pipe, 2 miles long. It's probably the longest artificial tunnel the district has. So congratulations on that. But seriously, that project was very complex, very complicated. It also included the suspension bridge to cross the Bear River. Very impressive, and it has the design and capacity to last multiple lifetimes. So That legacy will live on for a long time. Plan for water, we just wrapped that up. Doug helped spearhead that whole thing. That's a 50-year planning document. Set the district on the path to sustain water supply in the face of climate change. So that's very important, very topical. And last but not least, Centennial, the controversial project. Doug took the brunt of the disgruntled public outcry on this project, yet he was simply doing what was directed. Regardless, he most always kept it professional and attempted to not let the name calling bother him, although at times I think it may have. I feel sorry for the dog when you got home. Although now that he's retiring, we may finally learn where all the fictitious secret Centennial related documents are hidden. Well, that's just a small sampling of what Doug has worked on through his career. On a personal note, it's a bummer to be losing such a practical and qualified team member, and more importantly, a friend. Lastly, a few words of wisdom. The trouble with retirement, Doug, is that you never get a day off. And for Kara, a retired husband is often a full-time job. And lastly, Doug, you're retired. Goodbye tension, hello pension. Congratulations.
Doug, do you want to say anything?
Sure.
Joke. Not a joke.
What's that?
Not a joke.
Well, I've never been very good at that. Actually, starting by career comes full circle. So my first, a little over 20 years ago, I started here. My first introduction and presentation to the board was with this exact same podium. And here we are on my last board meeting, standing at the exact same podium. So some things never change, including awesome furniture. I'm not going to get into the specifics of individuals. I think I got time to still do that. I do want to thank the district. It's afforded me many opportunities, both professionally and personally. Professionally, in that there's multiple projects that we get to work on. It's an amazing place that we work in. The district has so much diversity, whether one day you're up in Jackson Meadows or Bowman, next day you're down in Thurmanlands, just its own unique place, and everywhere in between. So you're always working on multiple jobs. You're always working on treated water, raw water, hydro stuff. So it's been pretty awesome. It really has. In terms of personally, it's allowed me to take care of my family, to allow us to go do things that we like to do. And now at the end, in retirement, it's helping me fulfill the dreams of the retirement as I go into the next phase. So I'm very appreciative of the district for all of those things. You spend more time when you're working, you spend more time with your work family than you do your home family when you actually sit down and look at it, because you're here for 8 hours or 9 hours, or then you go home and you got a couple hours and you got to sleep, et cetera, right? So I've truly enjoyed working with most everybody here.
Most.
I won't name specific names. And like all families, there are times when you may agree to disagree, but the people here are awesome. Management team's awesome. Staff in general is awesome. Always enjoyed working with folks here. I think people take us for granted, take staff for granted in terms of, water turns on, water turns off whenever they want it. And there's a lot that goes behind that. And there's a lot of people that take pride in making sure the district does what it needs to do. So that part's pretty cool. Otherwise, like my son who roasted me at his high school graduation, I'm a man of few words. So I don't have a big, long speech to say other than, again, thank you, everybody. I have truly enjoyed my time here at the district. And these next few days, I plan on letting everybody know how many days I have left, which I've been doing probably for the last year anyway, but now it's really going to get heightened. So Chip, I got 6 work days left. But anyway, again, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. And we got one more board meeting to wrap up, and then we're on to new and exciting things. And if you ever get up to Montana, feel free to look me up. Probably find some food for you, and maybe we'll take you on a trip somewhere. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Would, board members like
Yeah, well,
to?
I think we have another.
Well, no.
Adrian, come on up.
Oh,
We also have a hand on.
oh, we do have a hand. Okay.
Oh,
Well, I was following direction.
I know, that was my.
I know it was your fault. Okay.
Good morning,
Hi,
board.
Adrian.
Hello. Mr. Sunshine is not what we call Doug downstairs. So we had other names for him. And Kara, I apologize. We got him riled up with our family matters and he took the brunt of that. So, so I'm an engineer. I work with Doug and I've got an interesting story. Let me just say, Doug was really nice to work with. He was kind of measured. He listened to both sides. There were squabbles. Just like a family, and Doug would listen to both sides. He would think things out, and he was a thinker. He'd take his time and come to a conclusion. So in that sense, the former engineering manager was an anti-Doug. Doug's very opposite, and so Doug was a refreshing change from that style. So in 2016, we had the NID relocate the Newtown Canal, and it was a project that went from an ISMND to an EIR. We spent over $1 million. It was very contentious. The property owners didn't want this canal from the back of their houses to be put in a pipe. So we finally got to construction. Hanson was the contractor, and Hanson started putting in a 36-inch pipe in the roadway. And the plans stated that they had to be at an elevation less than where they started from, and that elevation was hidden somewhere in the plans, but they missed it. So they put the pipe in a couple inches above that, and they laid two sections of pipe in Newtown Road, put in popcorn slurry. Then we found out that it was too high. So our engineering manager at the time heard about this, and we were all in a room, and he just blew up. I mean, things were like falling off the ceilings. And Doug at the time was at the corner office, and he was sitting there and kind of looking at the stuff. And the engineering manager at the time he was livid. And so Doug came out. He actually diffused the situation. I'm not sure if you remember that. But it was pretty cool because he didn't have to do that, but things kind of calmed down and we figured it out after that. So that's it. Appreciate it, Doug. And that's yeah.
We did have Bernadette. Were you still wanting to say something? Hand was up.
There she is. Just unmute yourself, Bernadette.
Oh, okay. There you go, Bernadette. You just have to unmute yourself.
Someone give her some direction on how to unmute her.
Unmute.
Here
Oh,
we
there
go.
she is.
Can you hear me now?
You sure can.
Oh, thank you. I'll be real quick. I just wanted to say, a compliment. I'm over here in Nevada City. I work with Stantec, and couldn't make it because I'm working on a project for Doug right now, but I've done over 35 with you all, and most of those ones Chip mentioned, including the one Adrian just mentioned. And I just wanted to highlight two things. One, a project that wasn't mentioned, Doug's ability to manage CEQA, NEPA, and permitting is like a closet skill that is so impressive, and it's fun to work with him on it. He's not just an engineer. And on one project, we found a endangered rush. It was a pump station over by the airport. And we have now named it the Roderick Rush. For those who don't, a rush is a small, like, little teeny green plant that has, leaves that are no leaves. It just sticks up like a little stick. So anyway, it's lived in infamy. It's named the Roderick Rush. It's the only one ever found in this county. And he redesigned the pump station to work around it. The other thing he saved you all on is Brian Powell once gave me a hat that says NID on it, one of your old hats. And Doug forbid me from ever going out drinking in town with the NID hat on. He said, not allowed. So anyway, he's always looking out for your reputation, whether it's in the environmental front, engineering, and I have appreciated the 2 decades working with them. So just wanted to say thanks. And I will keep working on Scott's now. Sorry, I couldn't be there. Take care.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, board members.
Go first.
Okay.
Doug, I want to thank you for your service. I've been here 7 years now, and as time has gone on, I really was surprised when I learned that Doug was involved in all these other things besides engineering, and including Plan for Water. And I was really impressed during those times of his commitment to the district. Number one, never wavered, was always pro the district, and did a great job on all those projects. So I want to thank you very much. It was a pleasure knowing you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, Doug, thank you. You always got a straight answer from you, and it was great. It just shows how much respect you have in this room, and you've earned it. So thank you for everything and being the person you are.
Thank you. And we're still working on Pet Hill Extension.
I was going to ask, but I didn't want to. Yeah.
Doug, I regret that I didn't have the opportunity to work with you longer.
Same here, Brad.
Okay.
It's a simple comment from one engineer to another. You're never going to retire. You're going to figure out something to fix, design, and build at your new place the rest of your life.
Yes, we'll be very busy for the short term for sure.
The cottage for fishermen.
And Doug, I would just want to thank you so much for the time that you put in. And I was here like Chris, this is my 7th year. And I remember a time when things were, not just because Centennial, things were rough. And with the former engineering manager, with other folks that we won't talk about, but golly, you just were just steady and stayed here and took flack, and you didn't leave, which was really remarkable, given how tough that was, or could have been for you. So thank you. Thank you for staying here. Thank you for the work that you do. You're an excellent, excellent engineer. We've been really blessed to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Really has.
Well, we are going to take a little break. We have, and no one likes snacks more than Doug. Definitely going to have our little snack break. Some very special pies, and a little birdie named Kara told me what his favorite pies were. So we will take a break if that's all right with the president.
Yep. Okay. Very good. We will, what did we call this? Formally adjourn for a minute or 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
15.
15 minutes. We will be
I know
adjourned.
how slow everyone eats.
15 to 10.
Thank you. Call the meeting back to order, please. And we'll begin with the investment portfolio review.
We have Michael from PFM on, and this is our quarterly update on our investment. Michael, you want to take it away? Maybe we can share our screen. And no, Michael, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Were we supposed to read this in public comment, or what's going on? Is it supposed to be public comment?
Can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Great. And can you hear me okay? Because your volume is quite low and it was working a little bit better before we went to break.
Was it me? I didn't have my microphone on.
Oops.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much. We're squared away. It's nice to be here with everybody, and congratulations to another retired individual from NID. I think we had another one at the last meeting. So
Can we get more volume on that?
All right.
Is it me, or can it be adjusted
No, I
on your
think-
side?
That's better now.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
fixed it on our end.
Okay, great. Well, we'll jump into it here. Can everybody see my screen, and what are you seeing? Are you seeing the title
We're
page?
seeing the NID investment performance review front slide.
Perfect. Okay, well, I appreciate again joining the board, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the fourth quarter performance for NID. As I introduced last time, my name is Mike Crombetter. I'm the relationship manager on behalf of PFM Asset Management, and we are and have been your registered investment advisors since 2022. Just kind of jumping ahead to the market themes, we tend to look at the markets and reports in terms of themes for the periods that we're reporting. And last quarter did show that the economy remained on track for a soft landing, where the risk of recession remains low. Over the period, there was a belief that interest rates would remain higher for longer. It became more widely accepted. And so longer term rates rose as a result. There was simply a lack of evidence that inflation was coming down to the Fed target 2% rate. And the labor markets have continued to show strength as well. So it has led to an upward adjustment on expectations for rates going forward, with fewer cuts expected this year. And of course, there's a lot of changes with the administration following the election last November. So while the Fed will remain data dependent, they're going to likely adjust models in terms of what that means for their monetary policy going forward. So it has thrown some confusion in projections into the models. But over the quarter, the Fed did decrease interest rates by 50 basis points, but did adjust their outlook, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Can you see the slide that reads Fed's dual mandate now?
Yes.
Perfect. So the Federal Reserve has a dual mandate, and we look at this because it does guide their policy. They seek stable prices, stable consumer prices, and maximum employment. So actually, just today, we got the latest CPI read, the headline read for inflation for January, and it did come in on the strong side. It came in at 3% on the headline number. So if we're looking at the dark blue line here, where it peaked in 2022 over 9% and has come down, and we see kind of this flattening out from mid kind of 2023. It's just been difficult. It's been difficult to bring that number down to that Fed 2% target. Today's number at 3%, so, was fairly strong. It seems to be going in the wrong direction as they're trying to bring that down. But that is the headline number. And the Fed does rely on more of their preferred gauge, which is the personal consumption expenditure, and the core rate, which excludes food and energy because they're more volatile commodity price driven elements. So that when they strip out food and energy, we get to this PCE, this light blue line, which is more of their preferred gauge. And we don't have January's yet, but we did get December's, and that came in flat with November at 2.8% year over year. So again, struggling to bring that down to that 2%. And then we have the most recent jobs report that came out Friday since this report was published. That came in a little bit less than expected at 143,000 new jobs for January. It missed expectations, but there was an adjustment to prior months, which exceeded that amount of that miss. So we had an additional 100,000 jobs report created for November and December, an adjustment by 100,000 upward for those 2 months. So very strong new jobs prints. The 3-month average is 237,000 per month new jobs. That's higher than the prior quarters in the second and third quarters of 2024, where it was averaging about 133,000 new job pace in those two periods. So, and this most recent jobs print also was a little bit confounded by weather and California fires and so on. So there was some acknowledgement of that with that print as well. But still, the jobs data there is showing well. And that contributed to a lower unemployment rate since the print of this report. The unemployment rate came in at 4%, which is, on the low end of what we've seen in the range for the past 50 years. We show 25-year average history here of 5.7. And if you extend it out 50, I've seen the same number as well. So in terms of a range of unemployment, a low 4% area is extremely strong. So that's a good tailwind for the economy, not necessarily supportive of bringing that inflation number down. And of course, I mentioned the election. It's hard to talk about what's happening with the economy without acknowledging kind of the broader implications of legislative policy and changes that are occurring following the election. And there's 4 areas of policy that we're monitoring, and how that might impact the economy. Taxes, of course, lower taxes viewed as a positive for growth, but a negative for the deficit. Tariffs are likely to bring inflationary pressures as well. Immigration will have unknown impacts to the broader labor market. And then, of course, we really should have said deregulation here. We see it as a deregulatory environment. And again, our assumptions with these 4 items are just a stronger economic growth, but at higher deficits and higher inflation. And kind of an interesting anecdote to what happened with the election on that top right chart, we're showing an inflation adjusted change in consumer spending in November as compared to the prior 3-month average. So that light blue line, that dark blue line is the consumer inflation adjusted spending for that November period. And you could see how significant of a jump the pull forward of purchases were during that period. And largely we attribute that to the election results and the concerns on higher tariffs going forward. So if you look down on the bottom right to substantiate that, it's a word count from earnings releases and company financial releases, how many times companies mention tariffs as part of their, what's on their mind and contribution to their performance. So, we see it definitely on the mind of company with rising input costs and consumer tolerance for higher prices is a concern there, or at least something to be aware of. And then looking forward, just kind of the markets where the markets expect inflation. Again, this is at the time of print of this report. Things vary widely. I'm sure today's CPI print modified this a bit. Looking forward on the left-hand side, there's a wide range of forecasts for inflation, but generally range-bound with minimal progress to that 2%. The markets are looking at the end of 2025 for inflation to be around 2.6% on that headline inflation number. And again, today it came out at 3%. So that's not contributing to bringing that down and not necessarily in line with this, but certainly in range. On the right-hand side, we were seeing a median forecast projected for GDP for that last 4th quarter at 2.3%. And that GDP print came out last week in line with expectations of that 2.3%, lower than we had seen in the prior 2 quarters, but still a healthy print nonetheless. If you recall, the last time I reported this 3rd quarter GDP report was expected at 2%, and it's now received its final read at 3.1%. So certainly surpassed expectations there. And we looked at the components of GDP. There was a sharp decrease in net exports and a decline in inventories with that pull forward of spending we saw on the prior slide. So that was a negative contributor to that 2.3 print. So we feel it was a pretty healthy number. The largest contributor, though, positive, was consumer spending. Consumers are certainly driving economic growth. Consumer spending was up 4.2% year over year. So, again, a large contributor to that GDP number. And it sets us up for a strong 2025, which we continue to believe has a low chance of recession. 4 times per year, every other Fed meeting, the Fed prints its summary of economic projections, and we include this with our quarterly reports as we've done since I've covered this relationship. And we see on the top left change in real GDP. The light blue lines, or the light shaded areas in each of the 4 charts, are their economic projections from September. And the dark bars reflect their most recent economic projections released in December on the 18th. And any changes, you can kind of see how they've changed from that period. And GDP increased from 2% expectations by the end of the year to 2.5. We now know that came in at 2.3%. So that's kind of notable there. On the bottom left, we see the actual inflation rate kind of projections shifting upward. That's kind of working against what they're trying to do by bringing it down. So not necessarily trending in the right direction there. And we also see on the bottom right where the Fed has modified its own expectations for interest rates for this year with only 2 cuts as opposed to the prior of anticipating 4 cuts in their own projections. So, and that longer term on the bottom far right, you see 3% there. That's that longer term, kind of more terminal rate of where the Fed expects their policy to be. And that was also adjusted upward on the heels of the continued strength that they're seeing in the data. But overall, my favorite slide, it all really comes down often to this. Over the period, the yield curve has adjusted, and over the 3 months, long-term rates rose and short-term rates fell. So you can kind of see in that far left area where the dark blue line is now below the dotted line. So the dotted line reflects where we began the quarter. The dark blue line represents where we ended the quarter. And because the Fed did decrease 50 basis points and short-term rates respond more directly to the Fed policy, you see that dark area coming down. Whereas long-term rates, given the strength in the economy, you see rates rising to offset the fewer cuts that the Fed is expecting over that period. So overall, about 60 to 80 basis points increase from that 2 to 10 or 30-year area. It's worth noting too that since the prior quarter, while we saw the 2 to 10-year area of the curve disinvert, that disinversion has extended now up to 3 months all the way to 30 years, where you see higher rates as you invest longer. And that final kind of dip in that 0 to 1 year area that we see in the market now will continue to respond to Fed cuts. So if we see an additional 1 or 2 cuts this year as they expect, that should put us in more of a traditional rising rate environment as you invest longer out the curve. I should note, going back to that slide, it's that kind of that higher interest rate move that really formed the performance for the fourth quarter in fixed income portfolios. And we'll look at that as it relates to NID in a moment. Fixed income total returns for the fourth quarter. Of course, I just mentioned the increase in rates did lead to lower returns for the fourth quarter. Asset-backed, because they tend to have a shorter duration and rates, we're on a higher interest rate environment than we've seen in the last 10 years. They did have a positive return. But we're looking here at total returns for each of the asset classes. And U.S. Treasuries led the decline. And the others you'll see outperformed Treasuries because the market's confidence in credit markets and asset-backed and mortgage-backed markets, those spreads to where they compare to Treasuries diminished further. We've seen that, and we'll look at that again. And when spreads diminish to the comparable Treasuries, that supports their market values. So for that reason, they outperformed Treasuries. So while we had negative for the quarter returns, overall for the 1 year, very healthy performance for fixed income markets, particularly as you compare them to the recent historical of the last decade. So a good year overall, largely because of the interest that's been accruing in this higher rate environment. And for all of the reasons I mentioned, our outlook for the next 6 to 12 months, or at least things to consider, inflation does remain a concern. That progress they were seeing toward the 2% in the first half of last year has stalled. And therefore, we see that as a risk to monetary policy in terms of their rate cutting as aggressively as they had anticipated. So we've made some adjustments with those two areas here. Turning to the Nevada Irrigation District's overall portfolio, the total consolidated balance of $105 million. Allocations generally flat in terms of asset class for where we were in the prior quarter. We were able to sell a few more agencies over the period without terribly detrimental impact to the portfolio. And we sold agencies, but picked up agency commercial mortgage-backed securities. And we did that because agencies, in some cases, have negative yield to what similar dated treasuries are. There's very little value in the agency sector. However, where you can invest in the same issuer in a commercial mortgage-backed structure, you see 30 to 40 basis point type spreads to similar dated treasuries. So we're staying with the same issuers, but going into a different structure for the portfolio to increase yield for the district. We showed the issuer diversification as well. But we want to, kind of focus on where we're managing the portfolio. There are a couple of CDs that we're not managing. So when we look directly at the portfolio that we are managing, over the prior quarter, we saw a decline of about $170,000 in market value. Again, direct result of that interest rate move over the period, where shorter term portfolios outperformed longer term portfolios because of that move in the long end. In terms of the portfolio's duration, we're about 77% of benchmark. We're striving to extend to do that strategically with the callable agencies that remain in the portfolio. Where that 1.93 years is kind of the average amount of time expected to receive future cash flows in the portfolio. We focus on credit quality. The first objective of the portfolio is safety, and 95% of the portfolio is AA. That includes treasuries and agencies. The balance at single A. Again, we show issuer diversification. So in terms of credits, nothing more than 3% here in the portfolio. That's with that JP Morgan and Company. We tend to like to be lower than that, but I suspect, and I don't know the answer to this, that there may be some different types of assets with JP Morgan there. I'd like to take a look at that too. And I mentioned moving from agencies to commercial mortgage-backed structure. This reflects the activity for the period, getting out of agencies and moving into that commercial mortgage-backed product. And looking at overall portfolio performance, this is total return. So we're looking at the total return, which includes both realized and unrealized market value changes. So this second line here, where we're showing a $748,000 decline, that's a market value decline, including both realized and unrealized losses. That's offset by interest that was earned for the period of $545,000. So a total dollar return of $202,000. So we did give some of that strong performance back from the third quarter in 2024, but overall for the year, a positive and strong change in market value, both realized and unrealized, of $2.3 million, with interest earned of $1.8 million. And while there was a slight loss when we compare it to the 1 to 5 year U.S. Treasury benchmark, 58 basis point outperformance in the portfolio to that index, and 78 basis point outperformance for the full year. And just,
Can I ask a question?
That'd be great.
Not
Thank
all
you.
of us know what basis points are. Could you please define that for the board and perhaps anyone else who's out here listening, and compare it to percentages?
Great question, and thanks for asking. So if you look down on the bottom part of this chart where it reads portfolio, this is NID's portfolio. And moving to that first column, the 3-month column where it shows a negative 0.19%, this is total return for the portfolio of minus 0.19%. And we're measured by the performance index of the 1 to 5 year US Treasury index. So if we're looking at the index, that minus 0.77% is the performance of the US Treasury index that we're measured by. So when I say we outperformed by 58 basis points for the period, it's the difference between the two. 58 basis points is 0.58%. So 1 basis point equals 0.01%. And looking over the full year, that 78 basis point difference, or 0.78%, reflects the performance of NID's portfolio over the benchmark. So that 4.19% total return over the year versus that benchmark of 3.41. Did that clarify?
It did for me. Does anyone have any other follow-up questions? Brad? No?
The benchmark, why is that the benchmark we're using? How is it decided upon?
Great question.
Yeah, the benchmark, it stemmed from conversations and discussions with the district about appropriate liquidity for the district, as well as the strategy for the portfolio, how we're managing the investments within the portfolio, along with NID. We do have NID's permission to make trades in the account with their consent on each trade. And so when there was, I wasn't here at the time. I started with PFM Asset Management in 2023, and the relationship preceded me. So I was fortunate to be able to begin working with you at the beginning of last year. But there was an assessment made that 1 to 5 year Treasury index would be appropriate given the limitations of California code that govern public entities and the investments within their portfolios. 5 year is a maximum. And in conjunction with the liquidity needs of the organization and the evaluation of returns, it was determined that that would be an appropriate index. And there are others that can be used as well, or can be reconsidered at times. You don't necessarily want to change that index often because it does change the structure of the portfolio, and it requires rebalancing and selling of assets to get into the objective of what that new index would be. But there are certainly others that can be considered if there are any concerns with the index being used. But generally, they're going to be fixed income indexes. There'll be a 1 to 3 year index, a 0 to 5 year index, et cetera. And really what that sets is the duration of the portfolio. How long on average do we want the securities to be invested? And it relates back up to the summary under the portfolio snapshot, where we're looking at, if you see my screen here, NID's effective duration in the portfolio of 1.93 and this index of 2.48, that 1 to 5 year index we're using currently. So if we adjust that index, that would adjust the duration of what we're trying to target. And the reason we're not necessarily right at that 2.48, there'll be times where we're not perfect on the index, but we're near it. This is a pretty large deviation from that index, but we're trying to get the portfolio readjusted from where it had been in prior years without taking too many significant losses by selling securities that will be maturing in the next year or two.
Before PFM was on board, the portfolio was managed by staff internally, and they didn't apply traditional municipal investment practices to the portfolio, so it was extremely out of balance.
Thank you for the explanation.
I appreciate the question, and if there's any others, I'd love to address those as well.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I just want to say, and part of your task is to balance our portfolio. And yeah, because you came from a pretty bad spot.
We're getting closer.
We are. I think we are. We're making great progress. We're pretty proud of the collaboration we have with the district. Sandra and Jennifer, to quickly see rise in yield in the portfolio. And in fact, I'm glad we came back to this page because I noticed I didn't mention the yield at cost in the portfolio. That's if all the bonds in the portfolio were allowed to mature, because this portfolio consists only of fixed income. It doesn't have equities. It's not permitted in the portfolio. The type of investing we're doing have accrual-based instruments, fixed income securities. And so if everything were allowed to mature, the yield at cost we would realize at this point is 2.16%, which has been on the rise each quarter as we're able to reinvest old securities at current rates and get that duration out there. that compares to a yield at market as of December 31st. If we bought all the exact same securities in the portfolio on December 31st, which isn't a likely scenario, but it's hypothetical, that the yield at market would have been a 4.44%. So the idea is to try to get the portfolio up to that level, but doing that in a measured approach so as not to take too many losses up front to hurt the overall performance of the portfolio, but try to maximize the value of that. I have one other slide that I typically will speak to, and it's just to show the effect of that earnings, where we have for the period of 3 months, 545,000 of accrued interest. We saw that on the prior slide. We did realize some gains, some losses in sales of old securities in an effort to reinvest at higher yields and increase the overall performance of the portfolio. And then when you adjust that with amortized cost changes of securities and accounting thing, we had total earnings over the period of $539,000, and over the past year, about $1.4 million. So just kind of a chart to show from an accrual-based look what the accrual earnings are on the portfolio. And this takes out any unrealized market value changes from period to period on the portfolio. I hope I've addressed all the questions, and if there are others, I'd love to speak to those as well, now or after the meeting.
Yes.
Go ahead. The next page on this here talks about some actual individual stocks that are being owned. I don't understand the not the source of them, but if we are constrained by California to what we can invest in, we are allowed to invest in these, and why did we choose these? I'm just not sure I understand.
You bet. Are we looking at this slide for the question?
Yes, we are.
Specifically John Deere.
That's good.
Sure. So in terms of government paper, well, going back to the portfolio and the investment policy, we are guided at the very top level by California code. And California code doesn't permit stocks, doesn't permit equities in the portfolio. So everything that we can buy for NID within state code, the law for public entity investing, is fixed income securities. And restricting that even further is credit restrictions. So we can't buy anything that's considered high yield, or you may have heard the term junk bonds. It's anything less than triple B. State code doesn't even permit triple B. It requires A and above. And then government paper has no restriction, and that's U.S. Treasuries, Federal Home Loan Bank, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. So and then NID can restrict the state code even further. So when you look at the world of investments, there's a finite segment of the investment universe that public entities can invest in. So everything we have in the portfolio is investment grade, non-speculative, fixed income securities, a yield-bearing instrument with a maturity date no longer than 5 years is the maximum term by California policy that it can be invested. So that's really a narrow band of what we can buy. And when you really look at the market and companies that have issues in that area of maturity or have credit ratings A and above, that is also approved as your asset manager by our credit committee. We have, from a universe of the investment grade world, A and above, we also further evaluate and have a credit committee that goes through and continues to assess the companies that we approve for portfolios as well. So, when it comes down to it, we also want to look at value, is the spread there. We've seen diminishing spread over the year, meaning the value that we're getting out of corporate bonds over treasuries is really tight right now. So where we don't see value in certain names, we're going to look toward a U.S. Treasury because it's the most risk-free liquid asset in the world. And that's where we've seen the trend of portfolios until we see the value of corporates widen out again. So I hope that sufficiently addresses the question.
I'm not sure, I might have missed a point here, but as an example, Apple Computer is it is an equity, and I didn't think we were allowed to invest in those equities. Is there a portion of Apple or a segment of Apple, or do they have a bond or something that is different than buying the actual stock itself?
They do have different instruments. So companies can issue
Okay.
stock, which is ownership of the company, but they can also issue bonds, debt,
So these are
just
Apple
like getting a
bonds.
loan.
Okay, that's what I was
Correct.
missing. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And looking at page 23 of this report I'm showing on the screen now, the second item there in your example of Apple 1.57 in the portfolio matures on May 10th, 2028. So
I missed that. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, you bet.
So Michael, I have a question, and maybe you could clear something up for me. In the report, it says that decreasing taxes is great for economic growth, but not good for the deficit. And I think yesterday or day before, the Congressional Budget Office came out and said that decreasing taxes would cost $4.6 trillion or add $4.6 trillion over 10 years to the deficit. And yet the Laffer curve, and when the taxes were cut about 6 years ago, there was an increase in federal revenues of 47.7%. So we have conflicting numbers, we have conflicting experiences, and probably some are based on political considerations. But on one hand, the deficit is going to go up because you cut taxes. And on the other hand, economic growth is going to be stimulated to the point where there's going to increase the revenue to the government. What is your view?
You know, I'm sure things can be spliced and diced in different ways. I don't have the report that you're showing me and data to kind of substantiate or kind of agree or disagree or kind of give a different view. But when you look at just, the income that would be reduced from lower taxes, it might stimulate growth. I don't know the amount that economic development would offset the amount of taxes that would be lowered. It's a great question. It's something to consider. I guess I don't have a comprehensive answer on that for you right now, but I'd love to see the report if you share that with me.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because it was kind of proven in the 80s with Art Laffer and brought out the Laffer curve. He's preeminent economist, and it showed that revenues to the federal government went way up. And the most recent experience 6 years ago went up 47.7%. So I guess I'm going to tie it to the Federal Reserve, because everybody seems to hang on their word of what's going to happen, and yet they're like a weatherman. Maybe they're right 50%. I don't have a lot of faith that they have enough ammo to do what they're mandated to do to decrease inflation and increase employment. So it seems like right now we have competing philosophies, and for us to base our whole investment on the Federal Reserve and what the indications that they're coming out with, I don't feel very comfortable with that. I just have a different investment policy. But I think you guys, as to your mandate of balancing our investment and getting us balanced here and getting us a good, reasonable return, you're doing very well. And it's not easy. I just want you to have, let's take a look at that other side, that the Fed may not have much maneuvering room left.
You've raised great points, and I was listening to Powell's testimony today, and he acknowledges, that there's a lot of the changes they don't have the models for. I mean, he didn't say they don't have the models for it, but he, in a way said, a lot of their policy will be contingent on economic data. And on one hand, they're looking at historical economic data to substantiate what moves they're making with policy. But that policy is the one thing that our economy really does rely on in terms of establishing mortgage rates, investment, when the market participants are buying and selling, what do they think the Fed is going to do over the next year? What is that one rate going to average to be? And set fair pricing based on what a very influential central bank has in the markets. But Powell himself acknowledged today, that they're looking at the data. They're data dependent. So whatever happens outside of their scope as a central bank, as a Federal Reserve, they'll respond to with the appropriate monetary policy to achieve that dual mandate that they have, the stable prices and the maximum employment. So I'm certainly not in disagreement with you on that. I think it's just their view is to achieve those two objectives, and that's we are acknowledging as a firm that these are 4 items we're watching as well. Like how will this impact their changes with their own projections? We see quarter to quarter that their summary of economic projections on this slide here will change quarter to quarter, and they are adapting that in response to legislative legislative policy and fiscal policy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other board member comments or questions? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Do we have public? No.
You can, yeah.
Okay. Is there any public comment or questions? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, Michael, very much. Appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
analysis. All right. From
Thank
there, we
you,
will
Fred.
move. Okay. From there, we move to our consent agenda, items 4A, 4B, and 4C. Does anyone?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Please call the roll. Yeah, I guess. Since I forgot that part. Sorry, everyone. Yes. Any public comment on our consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll. Yes.
Sorry, I'm supposed to do you last, Madam President. I'm gonna start that over. Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
and we'll repeat, Division 1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving to general orders. Item 5A, capital budget amendment and equipment purchase for Deer Creek Powerhouse Excitation upgrade. Oh, we get Doug. Is this your very last? This one and the next one. Okay. Okay. Well,
What does it
we'll see
mean?
what we can do about that.
I will entertain a motion. Oh, I can't do that.
Do you want to make the motion? Is that what I'm hearing?
Hold on.
I know, right?
Yeah, what's gonna happen now, right?
So what's gonna happen?
Okay, well, good morning. So this first item here is related to the Deer Creek Powerhouse Excitation upgrade. Recommending you adopt a resolution which is approving a budget amendment that for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $95,000 to carry forward for unspent appropriations from 2024 for this project. And then also include a sole source contract with Bassler Electric for the new system and transformer needed for the project in the amount of $156,966. So if you remember, back in August, we moved this project forward. We were supposed to actually start working this in 2025, but because we were continuing to have troubles at the Deer Creek Powerhouse in 24, we moved it up. We did a budget amendment in August of 24 to start that process. And so now we're just carrying it forward to finish up what we were trying to do there. So, which is replace the excitation system with a new and improved upgrade. We wanted the sole source because it also is in line with all the other ones that we're upgrading. So we have all the same system and equipment throughout our stuff, which makes it easier to maintain, replace, repair, et cetera. So seems pretty straightforward. So I think I'll just bounce to the board if you have any questions with regards to that.
Questions from board? Comment?
No?
I still like its excitation.
No, it's a great name.
Yeah, you have to put power in a power plant to make the power plant go.
Correct. Yeah, and it controls, so you put it in, creates a magnetic field in the rotor, and then it actually is controlling the output of the generator so that it synchronizes with this, with the grid and the system, so that it stays, so it's constantly reading and making adjustments so that.
Thank you. No more comment. All right, public comment. Anyone want to weigh in on this or have a question answered? Nope. And how about out there in the land of Zoom? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion, please.
I move we approve the 2025 capital budget amendment and equipment purchase for Deer Creek Powerhouse Excitation Upgrade Project number 2395.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Dustin, we should separate these two into two different motions, right? Because then the second one is the sole source contract.
They're
Resolution.
same
they're encompassed in your.
It's all in the,
Yeah.
okay,
all
all right,
one.
great.
Right.
Very good. Well, we have motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3.
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 1.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank
That was
you.
easy, Doug.
Yeah.
Okay,
Those.
next, item 5B,
Let's make
capital
this more
budget
complicated.
amendment, Dutch flat.
So again, this is a recommend that we adopt a resolution amending the fiscal year 2025 budget, capital budget in the amount of $23,135. It's basically to carry forward unspent appropriations from 2024 for the Dutch flat number 2 powerhouse standby generator upgrade. And basically what happens, we now have all the equipment, but we got all that too late to do the outage from last year. So we'll be doing that in this coming year when the outage is scheduled. And so a lot of this work is really just consulting work. They got to do a lot of as-builting. So when we do improvements and upgrades to powerhouses, the amount of effort to go into to make sure all of the changes and upgrades onto the as-builts has been documented and correctly input, which is really what's left of the contract. So we're just asking that we, it's no new additional cost to the project. We're just asking
Right.
that we unspent money in 24 get pushed into 25 to finish it up.
Okay, thank you. Is there any
Seems pretty
questions?
So we still have supply chain problems.
Yeah, we're still struggling with some of that stuff. We do have the equipment now, but a lot of those types of things are still being difficult. I'm not sure. I think we were supposed to have the Auburn treatment plant, the actual MCC. I still don't know if we've actually received it. It was supposed to be sometime in February. I mean, it's some of those things are an ongoing. Transformers typically are, I think, still up to 3 years wait time for some of those. It's a problem on that side of the shop. It's a problem.
Any anticipation with the tariffs? Are some of this being made nationally or abroad?
Yeah, I think for North Auburn, it's a US company that's building the panel and putting everything together. Where all the components are from US or not, I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head, Rich.
Are they coming with a price increase or are they?
No,
doing the-
we have not seen that. Once we order it, it's just a matter of being delayed.
Good.
Good. Other questions?
Actually, I do have a question.
Okay,
At the
great.
bottom of the staff report, Doug.
Yeah.
It says, as a result, and you might have covered this, and it says, as a result of the delay, additional design expenses will be incurred. What is,
Yeah, so that was basically the as-built portion of it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, once we get everything installed and
You-
finally
you
dialed
had to
in.
get it there to figure out?
Yeah, exactly. So that contract is just kind of the remainder of their contract. Yeah.
Good. Is there any public comment about this item?
I'm going to move to authorize an amendment to fiscal year 2025 capital budget in the amount of $23,135 to carry forward unspent appropriations from the fiscal year 2024 budget.
We have a motion. Is there a
Second.
second? Second? Is that Brad?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moved and seconded. And call for roll, please.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 1.
Yes. Thank you. Is that it,
Thank you.
Doug?
That's it.
That's it.
We got some closed session.
I voted no on one of them.
Yeah,
No, that would have been good.
I was waiting for some really off the wall
Are-
questions.
Giving him some more time.
Yeah.
You're going to be here next meeting?
No.
No,
No,
sir, this
this
is
is
my
the
last one.
So can you give us a Pet Hill Extension update?
Or wait,
On
what
the
about
agenda.
yeah, right.
Come see me. I'll be happy to talk to you about
Very good.
that.
Thanks, Doug.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay. All right, item 5C, continued water shortage emergency.
Yeah.
Doug's leaving me presents.
Chip,
Hey, good morning again, board, staff, and public. Today, we appear before you. Staff is recommending that we make an extension of the emergency water supply declaration. But first, I thought I would walk through a little bit of a brief history of how we got to where we are, give you an update of where we are currently, and then we'll dive into the resolution details that are before you. Starting off at the beginning, actually, that's not the first slide, is it?
Mm-mm.
There we go. We had to get the graphic in there. I mean, it's all about aesthetics.
Yes.
Okay, so I cannot forward. Yes, I can. All right, it all started in February of 2024 when PG&E notified us that there had been a rock slide on the South Yuba Canal pipeline portion. And as you can see in this photo, that pipe normally sat along that bench that you see somewhat defined in the picture, but had been knocked off of that perch and severed. Initially, NID wasn't too concerned because we knew we had backup plans in place through Spalding 1 and Spalding 2. But the very next month, PG&E came back to us and said, a little more bad news. We have lost Spalding 2, which had already been broke. We kind of knew that in the background. But more importantly, Spalding 1 had now suffered catastrophic damage as well. And this was really bad news for NID because, as you all remember, on the upper left-hand portion of this slide is the entirety of NID's upper watershed. It all collects in Bowman and Spalding and then runs down that yellow line, which is the BS Canal, all the way into Spalding Reservoir, where it gets captured and then distributes out of Spalding in your upper right-hand corner there into two different avenues. One is the South Yuba Canal feeding Scotts Flat Reservoir. Two is the Drum Canal or the Bear River that gets water into Rollins. Essentially, all of those paths had been cut off. And the news from PG&E was that the repairs were going to be substantial. They were going to take a long time to complete and led us into the emergency declaration that we had for all of last year, as you can recall. How far did we get? Well, during the 2024 repair timeline, partial repairs to Spalding 1 were complete. They were unable to complete all of the repairs, specifically because they were concerned that it would take all summer to do both horns, and there's no way NID would have had enough water to make it all the way through summer. So they then changed gears, shot for the repair of one horn. They were able to get that done in July. However, that limited flows, and through our emergency regulations, we had a lot of conservation from our customer base, and we made it through, although Rollins definitely suffered from that. The repairs to the South Yuba pipeline were completed in early August, which was great. However, it was really irrelevant because we really couldn't get water into that pipe due to Spalding 2 Powerhouse remaining out of service and really no way to get water to it. So here's a couple of shots of PG&E flying in that pipeline to repair it. Pretty impressive effort, actually. And there's the pipeline in place. Basically, that's what it looks like today. And then similarly, here's the two horns in Spalding 1 that are being demolished and ground out in preparation for new steel linings.
Can I interrupt for just a second, please?
Sure.
Prior slide.
Yes, sir.
This is the new pipeline going in. The support structure for it, is it similar to the last support structure or has it been modified?
No, great question. So the last section only had, I think, one support in the middle. This new section has multiple supports all the way across. They definitely fortified it. Part of the reason is the pipe was a bigger, thicker walled, a lot more weight to it, so they were concerned and put in much more supports for it.
Is this designed so that a future rock slide can go underneath it?
It is not. So we are under the same threat. They did do an effort and knocked loose any rocks they could see that were, on the edge, but, that's only a short-term guarantee.
I've got some nerd questions about the bedding and the fractures and stuff like that, but I'll discuss that later.
Okay, so where does that lead us now? So as we have talked many times in the PG&E update, NID, PCWA, PG&E, we all meet every week. And we have been discussing whether we move forward with the second half of this repair. And I got to tell you, in January, it was really questionable. We weren't getting any rain. Things were very dry. Reservoirs weren't full. However, since that time, we had a really wet, we had a wet December. January wasn't performing. February now is. The good news is Rollins is full spilling. Scott's, as of this weekend, is now full and spilling as well. So that's great news. Our conversations with PG&E and PCWA support moving forward with this next round of repairs. We really want to get this done. We want to get it behind us. And part of the concern is that if we delay another year, there's a very good chance we have a dry year, and then we delay again, and so on and so forth. We don't want that cascading effect. We want to get this over with. And that, again, is supported by the precipitation we've now had. We're at 44.75 inches, 113% of average. That is going to go up. More weather in the forecast. The good news is the one coming in now is a little colder, so we're going to get a little snow at about that 5,000 foot level, which is perfect. Reservoirs, again, really great.
Wow.
Yeah, 116% of average. A little bit deceiving slide, as I've mentioned before, because some of that water we won't have access to until this emergency is over. But the good news is it's there when we need it, when repairs are done.
That's a good question, because we're reaching our threshold where we could declare a surplus year. And yet, we're not, because the water will not be available to us.
Yeah, I'll touch on that here in a minute.
Okay.
So anticipated 2025 outage timing. So Spalding 1 Horn B repairs are slated to begin March 3rd. Work is anticipated to go through August 2nd. That seems a little daunting and actually longer than what we witnessed last year, but I will tell you the PG&E's latest schedule update shows the tunnel being filled in late June. And once they do that, they have indicated there will be some flows available at that point in time. So that actually is a little bit earlier than we had it in 2024. Nothing set in stone. That's just their preliminary schedule for now. So we're going to hold them to it.
Is that the plug they were talking about?
That is the actual horn repair.
Oh,
Basically what this means is that they expect to have both horns done and repaired by the end of June. They will then fill the tunnel and start doing some flow testing.
filled with water. That was.
Yeah,
plug
they can't guarantee full flows on any of that till they perform their testing. Right now, they think that's going to take them a month. So that's just where we're at. The good news is, though, once they fill the tunnel, some flow should be available to us, especially because one of the horns is already done and fixed. Spalding 2 repairs. The bad news on Spalding 2 is they have realized that it has some wicket gates that need repair. And like Doug mentioned, the supply chain is very difficult for those kind of items right now. And they expect repairs won't be done on that facility till 26 and 27. So they have moved forward with a bypass around that powerhouse to get water into the South Yuba Canal. That's good. We appreciate their efforts. However, right now, they did one flow test through it and had some damage. So they are back to the drawing board and installing design number B and reducing the flows a little bit. So our fingers are crossed that they're going to get that figured out, and we'll get some flows into the South Yuba Canal once this Spalding 1 horn outage begins.
How many CFS are we talking about?
So PG&E, their recent design is designed for, I believe, 70 CFS to bypass the powerhouse, which is pretty good for us. We indicated to them we needed 60 down at the end, 60 CFS at the end of the South Yuba Canal. So That accounts for some of the loss and whatnot and should keep us in pretty good shape. We have, however, indicated to them this is a pretty critical piece for us. In fact, we were holding off on saying yes to all of this until we were hopefully getting some assurance that we'd get some water down this channel.
Do they have a backup plan? Because what I just heard you say, and maybe you could expand upon it a little bit, that their testing didn't go well. Is that what I just heard? And was that in the bypass?
That's correct. The bypass was tested at a very high flow, 140 CFS. It
Right.
did not hold up,
It didn't hold up.
but they did go back to the engineering design team. They have come up with a new design. It's being installed as we speak, and they are now going to reduce that flow to 70 CFS, and therefore they think that it'll hold up much better. So
And then what is the plan if it doesn't, or if they have to restrict it further? Do
we'll
we
get
have
to
a
that.
backup?
But basically, it will be the exact same scenario we had last year. There won't be any water in the Cascade Canal. We'll rely solely on Scotts Flat and all our emergency pumps. I'll get to that slide. in
Okay,
just a
thank you.
second. Okay, so we'll walk through a couple worst case, best case scenarios. First, Spalding 1 outage. Basically, as I mentioned, it's going to affect Rollins. Worst case scenario is that full flows don't return until August 2nd. We expect Rollins to drop to below 30,000 acre feet, which is pretty close to what we had last year. The maximum purchase of PG&E water will be necessary, so we reserve some pool of NID water in Rollins. There's a potential for rotating canal outages. We did not do that in Placer County last year. If this worst case scenario comes to fruition and this really goes into August, we may have to pull that off the table and implement some sort of rotation if we get that low. Boating and recreation will be unavailable until late July, but will become unavailable in mid-July. So that's a bummer there. Best case scenario, flows to Rollins start a little earlier and we'll hit elevations similar or maybe even a little higher than we saw in 2024. We'll purchase PG&E water, but won't need as much. And PG&E hopes to help us to sustain at least 3 boat ramps at the end of this whole thing. So again, constant communications with PG&E, hoping to minimize this as much as we can.
So there's 10,000 acre feet of PG&E water in Rollins.
Correct.
ECWA takes half, we get half, we can buy.
It doesn't necessarily work that way. We can buy. The 10,000 acre feet in Rollins is actually PG&E's, and they can elect to sell that to PCWA. They usually do. But we also have side contracts where we can purchase more water, PCWA can purchase more water. It gets pretty confusing, but we coordinate and communicate together, and we're trying to reserve as much NID water in that pot as we can as well, which is why we're buying.
So where is PG&E holding the water in Spalding that we purchase?
Yes, it's basically between what they have available in Spalding and Fordyce. And then every year they make a determination of what they anticipate inflows to be. And then they give an amount to PCWA and an amount to NID based on the COA.
But even though they have water there, we still have the choke point at the Spalding
Correct.
1 and 2.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So the beauty of what we're proposing in NID buying water, there's only a very small limited amount of water coming down. We're going to purchase some of that.
Whatever it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
whatever we can. This slide shows you what Rollins Reservoir did in 2024. We expect something very similar to happen again here in 2025. The only change you might see in this slide is that once both horns become available, I'm assuming in early August, PG&E will flow a little extra flow. We'll have, instead of 400 CFS coming down, we'll have availability of up to 800. So we think that Rollins will experience a little bit of a bump, which will be helpful. Our hope is to get all the boat ramps back in and then maybe it flatlines from there. But again, we'll work with PG&E on that as we move forward. On to Spalding 2, and again, Spalding 2 won't be available. So we're going to talk about worst case scenarios. There's really, the worst case scenario for SPA 2 would be no bypass, as we just discussed. PG&E should have the fortification of that bypass in place this week. They expect to be testing it next week. and we should get notification on whether that's successful or not here pretty quickly. Worst case scenario is that doesn't work. We'll be in the same boat we were last year, as I mentioned. I would expect rotating canal outages once again in late June. And then boating and recreation would become very limited at Scotts Flat at the end of summer. We would also need to maximize all emergency pumping under this scenario. So that's a bummer. We're hopeful they get this bypass figured out. It would minimize some of the pumping. It would eliminate any canal rotations in Nevada County. So that would be super helpful. So here's Scotts Flat Reservoir, and this slide's a little bit different. This is actually our forecasted Scotts Flat Reservoir elevation with a bypass in place. So the blue line there is what the median has been since, gosh, what'd you say, toward 1950? 57 years. So, and then the red line is what we would forecast the reservoir to do if the bypass is in place. Again, as I mentioned, up to 70 CFS is pretty close to what we normally get. So if we can get that bypass perfected, we'll be in pretty good shape. So what staff is recommending is a continuation of the emergency declarations that we put in place last year. We had Resolution 2410, which was the initial declaration of emergency. It appointed the GM to take actions to mitigate. It disallowed new or increased raw water connections until the emergency was over, and no fall water availability. That was followed up with the Resolution 2423, which established the framework for rotating canal outages. The goal was to limit those outages to only 3 days, and may need to expand beyond those listed in the list that was provided. I will say those went fairly well, given we have never done that before, but the feedback from the customer base was mostly positive. So we'll continue to work on those. Hopefully we don't have to do them this year.
Especially for the farmers and ranchers that had ponds.
Yes, very important. Resolution 2426 enacted portions of the District's drought contingency plan, which established mandatory 20% conservation measures. And basically the way we did that was through the limiting of outdoor watering for ornamental landscapes for both treated and raw water customers. We asked everyone to do it. And then obviously included a really large list of prohibited actions through the duration of the emergency. And that leads us to today's resolution, where we're basically extending, as I mentioned, all the other resolutions and then making a declaration of no surplus water availability outside of our water rights boundaries. So that's basically no surplus water outside NID. And that will remain in effect until the emergency is over. After the emergency is over and full supplies are available, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and determine if we want to remove that lack of surplus declaration. Keep in mind, once we get all the repairs in place, it's not going to fill our reservoir like that. It's going to take time to fill the holes that might be left behind.
So we're still obligated to sell to Nevada City because they're out of district.
That's where I was going.
So that's why
Grass
you'll,
Valley.
Outside of, you changed the wording.
yes, good catch. So it does say within our water rights boundaries. Our water rights boundaries includes the entirety of the footprint of NID's service area, whether you're an exclusionary island or not. So we are dedicating those waters available to the cities. Honestly, it's a public health and safety issue. There's no way the state would allow us to not feed them. We're their only source of supply.
It's also not that much water.
Right.
Right.
Very small drop in the bucket. So
Exactly.
that's why you see the wording you see before you today.
And we are also asking those cities for the same conservation.
And they have all come in line with our previous.
They did
requests,
last time.
So we
Yeah, they were
appreciate
great.
that, and we will ask them to do that again.
Okay.
Last I wanted to touch on, we got some very good response from voluntary reductions from our irrigation water customers. We appreciate that. We will start this year where they left off last year at their reduced amount, and we are going to encourage everyone to continue to try to do that. We realize there may be hardships, but we will strongly recommend they hold off on changing any of those allotments until at least July. We think maybe there'll be some better news in July and they'll realize we can make it. But I wanted to let this board know that's where we're proposing to start from. And part of the reason this whole docket packet is coming before you today is we need to get the raw water billings out.
Mhm.
And so what we're proposing, if this resolution is adopted today, we will send out the letters of notification to our raw water customers, basically stating that we're in an emergency. Here's what you bought last year. This is what you have available this year. And that's all you have available until this emergency is.
I have a question, just, are what we saying is that we have additional restrictions this year that are going to be added on or become cumulative to last year, or is it just simply the same 20%?
We are simply extending what was put in place last year.
You're reaffirming the previous. act.
Reaffirming, okay. Well, I just want to make sure it wasn't in addition
No, it's
to.
not in addition or new. It's extension of the previous.
Since we had a hot summer last year and the savings weren't the number we were asking for, do we need to, how do we put an exclamation point on this thing?
I appreciate the question. We're a little early in the season to really hammer home the conservation question. I don't want to ignore it, but what I'm proposing today is going to allow us to get the billings out in the next month or two. As conditions start to change, we start thinking about irrigation and watering. We need to go heavy into the media campaign that we really are in an emergency. We need conservation, and we just hammer the message home.
Like you go to buy eggs and it just said, this is no yolk.
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah.
A question if I could. I've gotten a lot of feedback from some Nevada County ranchers that use the ditches for water supply for their cattle. They don't have the ponds. What is the notification for them so they can make sure that they have get other means in place? And now that we're going to probably move this into Placer County also, I think that would apply also.
So we are sending out a letter in the next 2 weeks notifying every customer that's buying water today of the emergency in place and offering up the same allotment that you purchased last year. So if you made it through last year's event, you'll have the same water available to you this year.
Right, but we have a 3-day notice of a canal outage, correct?
Oh, yes. No,
No,
we
it's
will.
3-day extension.
It's a 3-day outage. We will endeavor to get those notifications out early. And it's really based on hydrology, so I can't promise today if we'll even need those, but we'll know probably within 2 to 3 weeks' time if that's coming or not. And we will send the notification out to every customer who's on those canals.
Sometimes we have people that lease the land for grazing rights. And the canal goes through their property, but those people will not know. Is there a public awareness campaign we can do to make sure that the ranchers are aware that there will be outages? And
So yes, we will do that through Greg's team. But I'd also offer up that the notification will go to all the account holders. Our hope is that they're communicating with the people.
I
that
would
are
hope
using
so,
the
but
land.
sometimes they don't.
You don't always get that. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I mean,
Their cows are drinking free out of the ditch?
Yes.
Ah,
deer do too.
Can you put a meter on that? So Chip, and Greg too, I have a comment about this, and that is that I think our messaging again is really, really important. We just had whatever it was, 10 inches of rain. We're going to get a whole bunch more. People are like, wait, we got all this precip. How can this be a water emergency?
Right.
So, my preference would be to put out, when we do, put out something very, very clear, because sometimes our messaging is like long and engineering-like, sorry, Doug. And, to say,
resemble that.
okay, we're in the same place we were last year. PG&E caused this problem. Here's what we're doing to correct it or, take care of our customers. And please do this, please do the 20. It's just something very simple.
I agree with you, and I think a picture speaks 1,000 words.
Uh-huh.
You get a low point in Rollins. It was very drastic.
It was really drastic.
That in the presser and
And I just really want it clear that this is, despite our COA and everybody's friendly and everything, I just really want to have PG&E shoulder the responsibility for this and then be accountable to the public so that folks aren't going, what is wrong with these NID folks? We got all this rain. What's up?
Yeah, we've got a number of ways to reach out to the community. We've got conservation measures. I think we've got a tank rebate. We've got some other rebate programs
Mhm.
that we want to promote. So your point is definitely well taken, especially the ones that may or may not get that letter.
Mhm.
Those leaseholders for lands, and what are they going to do to prepare?
Right.
So it's important. It's imperative, I think, that we get that word out to the right media outlets, social media, print media,
Farm Bureau.
radio media,
Mhm.
different partners, Farm
Mhm.
Bureau,
Mhm.
so that the word gets around more than just our connections.
And we have the advantage this year that everybody noodled this last year of how, what can they have to do to make this work?
Mhm.
And so some solutions came up and were passed around. So I don't think the impact will be as strong as it was last year.
Hope not. We're kind of hoping that a lot of these folks realize they can get by with less. They were
Right.
successful last year at conserving. Hopefully we can do the same again this year.
Is it time to bring up the Robert Vaughn request?
Can't we do that in public comment?
I don't know that staff had also received it, so I think we're aware of it.
I don't know that we need.
Well, my point is that we used to have a hardship subcommittee that could pass on recommendations to the board. And so the board has the ability to grant hardship exemptions for raw water users if they can truly present us and show us a hardship.
We don't have that committee any longer.
No, but we do, I think we do have the ability to grant those.
I think we'll have to take that up at a later time. I mean, we have to extend the water shortage emergency and then
Right.
move forward
We
with
have to
actions that.
Do
stem
what's
from it.
before us first. Right.
So,
Go ahead, please.
so we are still going to declare surplus water for out-of-district sales.
So within the district service right boundaries, surplus water is available.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And then within the boundary, within the water rights boundaries. I appreciate
Correct.
that. Okay. So this is the second year we've had a terrific rainfall year, and we're experiencing a man-made drought outside of our control. And that is discouraging, but I think it does underscore the need to maybe take some more control as possible. And then, and also it certainly underscores the need to advance storage options. So, which could alleviate some of this stuff. So that was just my commentary on that.
Beat me to it.
Appreciate
Don't go down to the Bear River Bridge and look at the water going down the river.
No.
Don't do the river. Don't do it.
I did.
Going to the ocean.
I did. I went and saw the spillage coming out of Rollins just a couple days ago.
Give me a second.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Public comment?
Is there any other comment or questions from the board?
No.
No. Okay. Then is there public comment about this item? Comments or concerns, questions? Anybody online? Okay,
I can tee that up for you if you'd like.
okay.
So staff is recommending adoption of Resolution 2025-12, continuing all water supply emergency measures in response to PG&E's ongoing water supply infrastructure emergency.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion?
I would move what Chip said. Or do I have to read it out, Dustin? That's fine. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Secretary, please call the roll.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 1.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, item 5B, Local Agency Formation Commission request for nominations. Jen?
So this is an item requested by LAFCo of Nevada County. So currently we serve as the special district representative as well as the alternate representative. The special district seat is open to any type of special district, whether it be a fire district or mosquito abatement or whatever it is. Traditionally, NID has held those seats. We reached out to the board to ascertain whether there was interest from the board members regarding the seats. Currently, Director Heck is the primary member. I think that this year, after some consideration, that Rich would like to be the primary member and Ricky serve as the alternate. So we have prepared resolutions to allow you to be nominated and then go into the formal selection process. There is, just so you're aware, there could be a situation in which nobody from NID is selected. So we can answer questions.
Just for information that we nominate them to go get to
To an
be on the
election.
ballot
Yeah,
at
To
LAFCo.
an election.
I said that really good.
And then there's election from all districts.
So
There's
we're not,
44
we're
special
not
districts,
voting for them to be on the board. We're voting for them to be our representative.
our nomination.
Or nominees. And then also, based off of a great recommendation from Rich, I reached out to SR to see if she wanted to come do a presentation here at the board to discuss LAFCo. I haven't heard back yet, but I'll follow up.
I just want to say that a couple of things. It's critical that NID has a seat at that table. There are things happening that we can provide input and also direction. Ricky has done an incredible job as a voting member. Yeah, you really carried the torch well. Going forward, one of the things she really wants to see is SR will be stepping down. She's been there, SR Jones has been there for years, decades. Yeah, just masterful. She'll be stepping down. There will be a succession process. We're looking at NID, maybe is annexation of areas that are within our district boundaries, but not within the district itself. We're also looking at the fire district consolidation, which was going smoothly for a while. But that is going to be important, very important so LAFCo has it kind of sits back and waits for annexations or for different things to happen, but also has a responsibility to be making sure that local municipal services are correctly being presented and done. And fire has become critical to everybody now in California, but it's been up here for a while. And to have fully functioning, fully staffed fire districts and stations are critical. And I think we want to propose that, keep it, going forward. Also, we'll be able to talk about the Bay Delta update. If it goes to the 55% unimpaired flows, everybody's at the table. Every municipality, every county officer, districts, they need to know how that's going to affect them. And it's a good place to get them the information. And that's it. I just think we should do this on a rotational basis and just kind of keep our presence there. I think there's going to be more competition in the election this year.
You too.
Yeah. And we just need to have both of us, or at least one of us on, and that could be Ricky or it could be myself. So, but either way, NID will be well represented.
I move to nominate Rich Johansson as a regular member of LAFCo and Ricky Heck as an alternate member for LAFCo.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment?
Just for clarification, we have two resolutions, 2025-13 and 2025-14. Your motion is to adopt both of those, correct?
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, there's one for each one of them?
Yes. Yeah, they have to be separate.
Have to be separate.
Yes. That does have to be two separate actions.
I
You're
think
good. You can just piggyback off away.
Okay, since
We
they're
do one-
they're similar enough that we
one
can.
motion covering both resolutions.
What he said.
Oh, those are referencing the resolution.
And did we have a second? I think we did. Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Earl. All right. Got that, Chris? Okay.
Division 5,
Yes.
Division 4,
Yes.
Division 3,
Aye.
Division 2,
Aye.
Division 1.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well done. Okay, next, item 6, workshop on the golden mussel. Looking forward to this discussion.
Trying to figure out how to farm them.
All right, this is the promised discussion and workshop related to the new golden mussel issue. The golden mussel are unwanted friends that do not belong here. We don't want them here. They can cause significant damage to our infrastructure as well as to environmental concerns. And we talked about this several times, but we've prepared a presentation for the board to help inform the board about how we're going to handle it. And then we have a couple of points of input we would like on how to handle boat ramps for the wintertime period. So we have both Monica here, Peter Wade is here, and then Sierra is our new guru for the mussels. And then I see Kara came back to keep us in line in case she's the real mussel expert. So with that, we will, there's lots of muscle for these mussels. So who wants to take it away?
Hey, good morning.
Please start.
Morning, Peter Wade, Director of Power Systems. Good morning, NID Board.
Yeah, it is.
NID staff and members of the public. Good morning. So we're here to talk about golden mussels.
You bring the mic a little closer, Peter, just, thank you.
Here we go. Thank you. They're an invasive, non-native golden mussels. That's what we're here to talk about. Recently discovered in California several months ago in October of 2024. On the right side of this slide, you can see the map with the red dots indicating positive confirmation of locations that they've been known to exist here recently, been discovered. This is the first location that they've been discovered in North America. So this is, as we mentioned, a non-native species that originated in China and Southeast Asia and has been a non-native species to Hong Kong, Japan, Taiwan, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Argentina in South America.
Peter?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So on that first slide, so October, when the first one, that was one red dot. And all the other red dots happened since then.
That's correct.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we've got a little bit further in here, but the primary vector is through boats, through boating. They can move downstream through river systems, but they can move upstream and everywhere a boat moves that has any kind of water stored in that boat. And that water can be the water stored in the boat motor for the cooling of the boat, or it can be a live well that wasn't cleaned and cleared out properly, or it can be ballast in a ski boat. This is a little bit about the life cycle and the exponential growth of the mussels. Apologize if this is a little small. There's a lot of data here. I do encourage you to review this and take a look. In summary, they start as a microscopic veliger that is released into the water in thousands, tens of thousands per adult. As they grow in the water, they will settle onto an object. They become settlers in that sense, and then they grow to larger adults. So it takes several years for them to colonize a water system, as you can see on the right side with the orange bar graph that shows how they've grown in other waters and watersheds.
Per square meter.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got some photos a little bit later in the presentation that will help really show how damaging they can be to any kind of waterway or water conveyance. In our hydroelectric system, we have cooling water passageways, intakes. All of those would require extensive cleaning annually, as other hydropower systems that have quagga and zebra mussels have been shown to have those problems. Here's a little more about the size and shape of the golden mussel. They get their name from the coloration of their shell. They are genetically different than the quagga and zebra mussels recently referenced. They're smaller, typically under 1.5 inches in length. They firmly attached to hard surfaces, and as an adult, they have an upright shell with margins on opposite sides, meaning they're symmetric around the opening.
excuse me? How do they attach? Do they attach traditional? Do they have a stronger bond? Do they need something as a substrate to attach to? What won't they attach to? Do we know anything about that?
Great questions. Generally, they can attach to any porous surface, any concrete or wood. They can also attach to scale, like rusty pipe. I'm not aware of surfaces they won't attach to. I think that's maybe something we can circle back to later.
Okay, like zinc or something like that where they won't attach. I just don't know.
Can you come to the mic, please, and identify yourself? Thank
hi.
you. Hi.
Sierra Monroe. So they, in the second,
I know, but just wanted to.
in the
formally.
second bullet point there, how they attach is the Bissell threads. So these and the quagga zebras are the only ones here in America that have the Bissell threads, so that's how that they really stay on the surfaces. They attach to really any hard surface, but these do also hang on to, the sand and stuff like that. So I look on the rocks and in the sand when I go and check for the quagga zebras. And I look for these also when I go to the lakes too. So they can just kind of hang out anywhere. But the Bissell threads are the things that make them different from the clams too.
There's no kryptonite surface that can save us.
No, not really. Yeah. It doesn't matter that they're, like slick on the boats or anything. They'll stick to anything.
Well, they can grow inside a fish, right?
I saw that.
Yeah, so the fish don't what's the word, digest them, so they can eat them and they'll just go right out through them. So
So are they edible? That's my question.
I don't, we shouldn't eat them. No.
You need to just not have them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That must be.
The threads are like spider webs.
They must be sticky, yeah.
I don't know what a Bissell thread is.
I don't either.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're a veliger, when they're a veliger stage, they're suspended in the water as they increase their mass through eating, through filtering. Then they settle by gravity onto a surface. Then they extend the Bissell thread out and it integrates with that surface. So it attaches firmly. Yeah, that's about all I can say on that.
Okay, thank you.
They are, they can move in freshwater and brackish water. So this slide describes some technical details about the pH, the calcium, the chemistry, and this information is given to us, has been provided to us by the, Sarah, correct me here, it's from the state, right? DFG?
Yeah.
Yeah. CDFW.
So could you summarize and recap? So they like high calcium?
Yeah. So just in summary,
Huh?
the quagga and zebra mussels that you may be more familiar with are also susceptible to calcium and pH. And they need calcium to complete their life cycle to build their shell. The golden mussel is much less sensitive to calcium content in the water. So in the past, if quagga or zebra mussels were introduced to our low calcium reservoirs, they wouldn't be able to complete their life cycle. This new mussel is a significantly different threat to our reservoirs because it can complete its life cycle in low calcium waters such as ours.
Okay, thank you. You have a question, Chris?
No. Okay. I had a question on your temperature.
104 degrees.
So freezing water doesn't kill them.
That's correct.
It prevents them from reproducing.
I don't know. No, again.
Well, I wouldn't really say that. So it's kind of hard. So the top left table there, unfortunately, it's in Fahrenheit for some reason. I wouldn't say that it prevents them. They can definitely live in freezing temperatures. I would say that it's harder to reproduce in freezing temperatures, but it doesn't stop them by any means. The lower left one is a good table that compares the QZ mussels to the golden mussels, so you can see the temperature wise in Celsius. But then it shows the calcium differences. So the golden mussel, they can reproduce in as low as like 1 milligram per liter, while golden mussels, or sorry, QZ mussels needed at least 10. So that just really shows that they can survive and complete their life cycle in a lot less calcium, which is, I think, what shows the threat that California faces when, or I guess Northern California faces compared to the QZ mussel. But no, freezing temperatures do not stop them, unfortunately. Yeah.
It also looks like pH is not much of a deterrent for the golden mussel, because once you get below 5 and above 10, you're into some ugly pH ranges. And it looks like you need 104 degrees to kill them, Fahrenheit.
That's correct.
Yeah. Boil them for eating, I guess.
Okay.
Ready to move on?
Yes, please.
All right. So that last table informs this table, builds this table. When we look at our calcium and our temperatures and our pHs and our reservoirs, then we build out this colorized table that shows where we're at a low risk, a moderate risk, and a high risk. So highlighting the lower right corner of the table, Rollins and Dutch Flat are highest risk reservoirs.
I have a question about this table because I've been contacted by a number of constituents who like to fish and recreate in Scotts Flat. And this goes to whatever policy this board decides on for these. But since, Scotts Flat, it appears, is very low, or not very low, is low, would the same things apply to, the same mitigations apply to Scotts as it does to, say, Rollins, that is moderate and high risk?
Yeah, if you want to take it, that's fine.
I think it does, because even though Scott's is low risk, we do have a vulnerability, because if we don't do the same thing that we do at Rollins or that other reservoirs are going to do, we're going to be the lake that everyone goes to. And then that opens up our vulnerability, which then will, we have a potential to get the mussel.
Okay.
So that's how to stay safe.
That is a good answer. I mean, that was one of my questions. Okay.
And again, we're anticipating the primary vector to move the mussels is through motorboats, fishing
Right.
boats or ski boats.
Right. Okay. You can continue.
All right. This slide demonstrates the environmental impacts from the mussels. The upper right photo shows a photo of the mussels, a colony of the mussels forming. They've been known to be found inside of fish. That's what that left photo shows, the upper left photo. The fish may try to eat them, but they're, as Sierra mentioned, they're undigestible, so they just pass. So they're not a viable food source for anything really in our watershed. They're a filter feeder, so they do absorb nutrients out of the water stream that the current inhabitants of the ecosystem will use, and so they can starve other.
So they're competitors for
Yes,
fish, or
yes.
for fish and other organisms. Okay.
For other naturally occurring organisms in the
Right.
watershed
Okay.
today. This slide in particular shows how it may affect piping systems in a hydroelectric power system. You can see the photo with the flange on the left side shows that there's significant scaling and that the capacity of flow in that pipe is far diminished. So if a colony is allowed to establish like this or is formed, extensive cleaning, mechanical cleaning, scrubbing. Even if you kill them, you still have to scrub them off of the surface to get the full flow capacity back restored. And in our hydroelectric generators, we use cooling water as a means to cool the generator. So we have radiators, we have pumps, we have piping systems. All of that would need annual cleaning. On the lower right corner is an intake bar rack that would normally keep trash out of the water systems, those also require extensive cleaning because it can become encrusted with the mussels.
Question if I could, you mentioned the word annual cleaning. Do we know the rate that these grow so that it might have to be weekly, monthly?
Good question.
Yeah, I'd refer to Sierra if you know anything on the rate of progression of how fast they can colonize a system. Yeah.
They're quick.
I'm not totally sure on that one. Like, I'm sure that there's a life cycle, like from villager to when they actually get to the shell stage, but I don't know the exact, timeline on that one.
And they spawn 3 times a year, once a year, or a spawn is the right word, I don't know, but.
Yeah, that's the right word. I'm sure there is. That might be on one of the slides. I just don't know off.
This is one of
Was
those.
it? I missed it, sorry.
On them, right?
It was.
So in the lower right,
Having babies.
on your screens in the lower right corner,
It's quick.
it's a matter of several years before there's several thousand produced per square meter. So if we don't do annual cleaning, then you end up with a complete occlusion of your piping systems.
I'm just wondering if it has to be weekly cleaning on radiators, for instance, because of the, radiators, heat exchanger with small gaps.
I mean, I think the main thing is they put out so many of the eggs and there's just so many villagers. So, I mean, I don't know if they go on a certain cycle, like they only put out eggs like, in April, like spring or something like that. But since there's so many and maybe they're on a different cycle or something like that, but I don't know the exact time frame. So I could get back to you on that one. I could look into it a little bit more, but I couldn't tell you a definite answer.
Yeah,
We're looking at the whole system, but if there's a super critical one, infrastructure that we have to guard with our life, otherwise it'll take a whole powerhouse offline in a week, then I think we need to approach that maybe differently than if it's something, something that we can access and scrape.
So I guess, piggyback on that. If we know the life cycle, then we see that chemicals will kill them. It's mentioned here in Brazil.
So, I mean, we're not technically allowed to use chemicals to kill them. I mean, especially with the QZ, we're not allowed to do the chemicals in the water with them. Also, they do close their what is it called? Their
Shell?
yeah, they can close their shell with
Smell
like
it.
water inside of them for about 30 to 60 days. So even if you put them
Really?
in chlorine, I think that they do, they can reopen and be totally fine. So
You sure they're from the, the world? They're not aliens out there?
I mean, they're invasive species, so they are alien to California.
Oh,
Or Mars or someplace?
move over cockroach, huh? I mean, that was supposed to be the last one to survive. So we need to know more about the life cycle, how often you have to monitor, how often you have to clean or.
Yeah. And I mean, since they are new to California, we are, California is just starting to learn about them. So California's doing all their own research and hopefully they'll give us more information and,
And so,
So bridging off of the quagga and zebra mussel response in the state of California, other hydroelectric power stations are doing annual cleaning and they find that to be sufficient. That the mussels can develop in that time, but annual cleaning typically.
Say that again, annual cleaning?
Annual cleaning has typically been proven to be sufficient for zebra and quagga mussels.
So Peter, I think that's my point. I'd rather go to contact Brazil, who's actually fighting it, and find out what's working.
Well, as of right now, we don't have mussels. So this item is to talk about preventing them. If we get mussels,
Then that's a different.
and as technology improves
And we have a
in
game plan.
California, then we will have a cleaning regimen and plan.
I'm also curious if you clean, let's say they get in a hydropower plant and you clean them out by scrubbing or whatever. Where does the debris go? And does it just go back into the water system or what? Do you guys have to like pick them out of the water?
Those are all questions we
don't know yet.
don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer some of that.
Okay.
To say that there was an emergency passage in the state of California that says you can't own or transport or move these mussels.
Right.
So as soon as they were found, it becomes, you can't intentionally dump them into a reservoir. You can't move them. So we would have to take them to a place to dispose them where they
So
wouldn't.
it's like a hazmat
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right now, steam or hot water kills them. Then you have leftovers.
Yeah.
You got body.
Compost them.
For one of your pastures. Calcium.
Great.
I can monetize this.
Okay,
Okay, we're switching.
we're switching. Okay.
Monica Reyes, Director of Recreation. So actions that we've taken. Scotts Flat and Rollins boat launches were temporarily closed on December 10th of 2024. Berryessa, which is in Solana County Water Agency, they have developed a 30-day quarantine program with tagging, and we're kind of jumping in with them as well. Other reservoirs that have closed: Comanche, New Melones, Lake Hennessy, Woodward Reservoir, and then Party. Just recently, Comanche and Party have decided they were going to open into February, but they have put out a press release that they are closed until further notice. So they don't have a plan going forward. PG&E, no action yet, although we are planning to have a meeting with them, I think, in 2 weeks. And hopefully kind of help them get on board. We also, yesterday, we had a great meeting with it's a new coalition. And we, I was just telling Jen, I'm like, I felt like we were superstars. NID was actually like a super. I just felt so good about that meeting. Well, and Sierra and Tina, who's not here, she was on the call too. And I felt like we were just ahead of the game. So many reservoirs haven't really thought about it, and don't have a plan. And I think it's now coming to light. It doesn't matter where your reservoir is located, because it's good that you have a plan and you're going to do something. But if the reservoirs above you don't do anything, it doesn't help you. So it was great. And I felt like I said, I felt like we were stars. So I will take that. So what we've decided to do is we're going along. Oh, sorry. Oops. We're going along, we're kind of following along with what Berryessa has put in place and seems to be working for them. It's a seal program, or you can call it a tagging program. We have red tags, and we do have them. We just haven't started handing them out yet. There are 30-day quarantine tags. So this year, any boat, before they can come onto either Rollins or Scotts, will have to come and get a red tag, and they are off the lake for 30 days. I mean,
Ties around the boat to
I
the
see that.
frame.
Yeah.
yes, to the trailer.
Ankle bracelet.
Yes, and they can't take it off. And if it's tampered with, when they come back after their 30 days, if for some reason it wasn't on there, or we could see that they had done something, then they're out for another 30 days. And then for those that choose to return to Scotts Flat or Rollins, as they leave, we will offer them, right now they're green tags, but eventually they will be blue tags with our names on them. And and they're basically called re-entry tags. So we will re-tag up their boat, and then they are allowed to come back to our lake because they've already done the 30 days. They were at our lake one time. We've resealed them again as they left. And as long as they come back with that seal still intact, that blue seal still intact, then we will let them come back on the lake. Now, where this kind of hurts a little bit is that, our boaters that wake up, I live in Elk Grove, let's go water skiing today. And that's not going to happen unless they've been decontaminated or they somehow saw us 30 days prior and got a tag. It might hurt a little bit for our slip holders and our season pass holders, because not all the time do they stay at one lake. I was talking to Leah, our park ranger over at Long Ravine, and she says she has more than a handful of slip holders that they have their boat on the slip at Rollins, but they do pull out every once in a while to go to another lake. If that's the case, when they decide to come back, they will have to do the 30-day tag, be out of our water for 30 days before they can get back into their slip. So
Does that apply to people that come from say, Folsom Lake, they go to Folsom Lake, they come to Rollins, they go to Scotts Flat.
Yes.
How does that work?
It would be the same thing. If they're at Folsom and then they decide to come to us, if they don't have a 30-day tag from us,
The 30-day.
the 30-day quarantine tag, they don't get on. And side note, Folsom was in our meeting yesterday, and they are probably going to be doing the tagging system as well.
Well, they'll have a tag from Folsom, one from Scotts Flat, and one from,
Well, we'll take them as they come and go, we take them off.
oh, you do, okay.
So they won't, and then eventually what we would hope to do is that in future, when we can trust all of our partners out there in different reservoirs and know that they're doing what we're doing, that if we have somebody that has a blue reentry tag from Folsom, we know that they're using the same program we do, and we would be able to accept them in our lake.
Questions if I could? The fake tags, I see the numbers on here. Are we gonna be tying that to the boat license or?
Yeah, so we are, we just had a meeting, I think last week. We've had so many meetings and classes and this and that on these golden mussels. And it's called the WID, which is the Watercraft Inspection and Decontamination Website Database. It's out of Colorado. And we were able to get into that. It's no cost to us. I think several reservoirs all over use them in California and other states. And basically, when a boat comes in, we have to enter whatever their tag number is or their CF number. And then there's some questions about boats, about what type of boat they have, where they last launched, all that. And then at that point, our initial contact with them would be a 30-day tag. So then we would enter that in there. And they do have specific numbers, and the blue tags, once we get them, that will have our name on them, will have specific numbers, and we enter it in there. So then what happens is that when a boat comes in the second time or the third time, or if they're coming from somewhere else, if that reservoir or our reservoir is using this new program, we will be able to see where their boat was launched last. If by chance they're coming from a quagga infested lake or a golden lake, there will be a red seal that pops up. So we know that we need to take precaution and maybe say, sorry, even though you do have a blue tag, we're kind of cautious here.
Second question is that a lot of lakes out there, they shut the entryway, the check-in station, but leave the thing open after 7 p.m. and you can go straight in. Is NID going to take care of that?
That's on the next page.
Okay.
We got that right on the.
Okay, good. I'll be quiet then.
So I guess my two questions, these tags are going to be under lock and key. And then two, Berryessa must have figured out a life cycle if they think 30 days is long enough.
Well, 30 days, they're going with the same research that we're getting from, we took a class from a gentleman that is in Brazil. We've taken classes with CDFW, and on the norm, their life cycle is 30 days. Now, what we're going to do, like on the wake boats or the boats that have the big ballasts or two ballasts, we're probably going to quarantine them for 60 days because in Brazil, they said that they could live past the 30 days because you can't, on those bigger boats and the boats that take a lot of that water in, it's practically impossible to drain them.
Okay. And third, something up Dustin's alley if someone is caught breaking or whatever, they're going to indemnify us for any cleanup?
Oh, right. Sure.
Yeah,
Say yes.
Yeah.
we'll do our best. The punishment will be steep. I don't know if that includes indemnity, but yeah, we need to vigorously enforce this.
I mean, well, I'm just saying that it's being thrown around in other cases, and the penalty should be severe.
Yes, agree.
Monica, I have a
Yes.
So this is a significant risk, and we have a handful of reservoirs, and we're talking about preventative measures or protectionist measures at 2 of our reservoirs. But Jackson Meadows and Bowman and some of these high country that obviously flows the water into these other reservoirs don't have the protection.
They are.
Are we
low-
just closing the big doors and letting all the little doors stay open?
No, well, that's
That's
what
what
our-
it feels like.
That's what our fear is with Spalding. But our upper reservoirs, are very low risk for this
Because of
And-
the
because of the calcium.
calcium, okay.
But also, we just don't have the manpower.
So it's because we can't.
I mean, well, basically, I mean, if we wanted to hire people to go up there or work with the Forest Service to figure it out, I mean, that's the only way to monitor it is to have bodies.
So the Forest Service is going to be monitoring?
No, I doubt it.
How would you monitor?
Am I gonna, am I asking you?
Well, we have monitoring stations up there, right, for the quagga, so we're looking for them. I mean, as far as the actual mussel. We're monitoring, we monitor for quagga. Yeah, so, yeah, we go and we have monitoring stations up there. I mean, obviously during the winter, we can't get there, but she does the checks at Scotts and Rollins and.
This is just a delaying measure, really, what we're
It's
talking
a
about.
detection measure, not monitoring the boats going in or out.
Yeah,
Right.
that's where.
But if we're not closing all the reservoirs, then we know that it's coming. It's just, we're making it not 2 years from now, we're making it 10 years from now. Right?
Awesome.
This is coming and we need to have a plan, is my impression.
We do.
Ramping up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So the 30-day quarantine thing that you were just asking about, the 30 days is how long they can survive out of water. Not like their whole life cycle, not their breeding and their shell development and their reproduction things. So that's why they're doing the 30-day quarantine, is hoping that you take the boat out of water for 30 days, then they will die without being in water for 30 days. So by us maybe extending it to the 60 days with the ballast tanks and that kind of thing, we're hoping that maybe the villagers will die within the 60 days. So by having that 30 to 60 days, we're hoping that we can have that like grace period that everything will die. But that's where we got the 30 days, and that's where Berryessa gets the 30 days, not the whole life cycle of the reproduction and everything. I just wanted to clear that up. Yeah.
Okay.
Oops, why do I keep going back? Okay, so what does this mean for recreation? Going to have another bad year.
Poor Monica.
I don't have any water.
Don't have any
No,
water. Now we gotta keep the boats up.
Yeah. So basically, our entry gates have to be staffed. We are lucky because there are a lot of reservoirs that don't have entry gates that have to come up with a plan. So all of our lower reservoirs, at each campground, we have an entry gate. When we first shut down in December, we put up cables that are bolted into the ground. So at our boat launches, so nobody can get down there at this point, just us or the sheriff. So we do have a way to stop people from getting out into the water. The problem that we have is that our gates aren't staffed during the winter months. So we will be hit with a cost if we choose to leave our lakes open during the winter months. I think, Chris,
Based off questions we received from Ricky, Monica put together some costs related to what the cost would be to keep the gates and boat ramps functioning during the winter. And as you're going to see, it's fairly cost preventative for the number of boats actually use the lake. Yeah.
So my question also was like cost benefit, right? So
Right.
How much is it going to cost
Right.
to do all of these things versus what we would lose in revenue from boaters and year-round passes and those kinds of things? I just as a base,
It was a great
information
question.
point.
Yeah, it was a great question. Monica was able to put this information.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah.
So I did it kind of in 3 options for the winter. I mean, summer, we can make it work. We will have to hire a few more temporary staff, but I'm not really worried about the summer months. We can figure that out. It's winter that we have the issue. So option 1 is we open up all of our boat launches for the winter. With that, I have 3 park rangers. One park ranger works 40 hours year round. And then I have 2 park rangers that work 40 hours during the summer and 24 hours a week during the winter months. That's a change we made. I couple years ago. And it's been working, but if we need more manpower, then I feel like we need to bring the Rangers on because they do work for us. And it's not like bringing a temp. If we rely on temps, they don't always show up to work. So
Right.
we need,
Right.
we need a body that we know is going to be here because I don't want to have to be working the gate. I will, but I don't want to.
I don't
and
really want to either, by the
Exactly.
way.
Thank you. So to bring those park rangers on full-time year round, just the two, the approximate cost would be $167,365. That's the fully burdened rate. So that's salaries and benefits and all the other stuff that we have.
Okay.
That's what it would be. And truly, we would need about 4.5 temporary staff to man Scott's Cascade Shores, Orchard Springs, and Long Ravine launches. Peninsula closes during the winter, so we don't need to worry about them. That cost would be about $84,200. Boating revenue and you know, if you on page 11, what we consider our winter season is October 1st through April 30th. That period of time. So during that period of time, our boating revenue is about $18,000.
Okay.
That's it.
So if you add the two minus the $18,000, our total expense to open up all boat launches would be $233,000 and change.
Oh, that's all boat, all boat.
During the winter.
Yeah,
For the
during
winter,
months.
just the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we only had one open?
Well, so that's option two.
Oh, okay. No, keep reading, keep reading.
It's better.
So option two, yeah, it's kind of small.
That you need to
Sorry.
go. I think the fundamental question is, does the board want to spend any amount of money on keeping the boat ramps open in the winter?
And
No.
I'd say no.
I would, my
I would say
recommendation
no.
would be
I would say no.
I see that if we open ours up, we're gonna be drawing in everybody else's. that are
Well, there's that.
It's just not enough boating to justify the cost. So
Mhm.
remember, these are costs that would be borne by the ratepayer.
Right, it's
recreation
ratepayer revenue for
rates
a
currently
handful.
not
Do you
have
know-
sufficient revenue recovery.
Do you know how many, so in that $18,000 figure, how many boaters that is?
It's 300 and change
300.
Over the
over the course
the
of
course
that
of
whole,
every month
yeah.
of the winter,
All the boat ramps.
October to April.
So 300 for the full winter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, not 300 a month?
No.
Oh, okay, for the full winter. So you could say that for those 300, the ratepayers are being burdened an extra whatever for those 300 boaters.
Yeah.
Correct, and we don't have the funds. to
Right, we don't have the funds.
substantiate
Okay.
doing that. We have a lot of other
Okay,
priorities.
can we, this is a workshop, so public.
Well, yeah, but we're
Public
not even done yet,
It's not even 300 voters, right? I mean, most of
She's
those. are
not done
frequent
yet.
Flyers.
Rich.
Correct.
But the public may have.
I
questions.
know they will.
So it's
We'll get
100
there.
bucks.
Locals in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, there are locals. And the thing also, just a side note, is, you know, like our season passes.
Right.
So typically, most of our season passes are purchased in April, May, June. Most people use them from May through October. So that's not going to hurt them. And you, in order to be cost effective on a season boat pass, you need to use it 12 times, 12 and a half times.
Mhm.
So the typical boater is going to do that.
Mhm.
So we don't need to worry about them. The only thing that, and I will have to move, is that like our mooring balls at Scotts Flat, they usually come on the lake April 15th. But I can change them to May 1st. So that won't be an issue.
Mhm.
So we can drive that. And then something I think is still kind of in the works is just the hours of operation, because obviously we have to have hours of operation for the lake.
Mhm.
And so I had it's not there, but slide 11, we had winter hours, 7:30 to 4:30. I
Mhm.
think that we can do that.
But wait, if we're
Wait.
talking about, hold on.
So,
If we're talking about closing for the winter.
oh yeah, never, okay,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
no,
I'm
I
sorry.
was just
I just
saying,
wanted
look,
clarification.
know,
So
we're
that's what we're
looking-
doing, yes.
Yeah, here, Monica, we're getting late on time here. So
Okay.
for points of input right now, we're looking as to whether the board desires to have any winter boat access. And if it does, there's costs associated with it that we would bring back a budget.
Mhm.
So we wanted to take a temperature check with the board to see how you were feeling about it.
Understood. Okay.
What about Combi?
Okay,
Pass it on to Greg.
no, we do have a representative. from
We've
Combi.
got representatives here from both Combi and Lake.
Right, and
Pines
we
that
do
are
want to hear
in the
from them.
audience. We'd like to hear from.
Yeah,
them.
I'd like
Have
to hear
boats,
from,
right?
Those are boating.
yeah.
Yeah, we
And
have very little control on both of those lakes.
And I think for Combi, our dock people, they're not in and out of the lakes. It's just, I know, and I've heard through the grapevine, and I've gotten more than a handful of anonymous phone calls from people about how people share keys and they're allowing outside people to come into the lake. So I think that's where we have to
Oh, interesting.
figure out a way, if that's true, which I don't know.
Right, we don't
but
know.
We don't know. But I think that's the thing with Combi is it just needs to be people that live on the lake. Those are our boaters and they need to not leave. And if they do, maybe,
Well, the boats need not.
exactly,
The
yes.
boats can't.
Right.
Yes.
And we're not fully able to address Combi right now.
If you
Bill-
can,
Okay, so
Bill,
let's,
come on up.
let me ask for public comment at this point. Thank you. And if you'd come to the dais and give us your name and where you live.
Yeah, I'm Bill
Yeah.
Johnson. I'm from the Lake Combi Association.
Thank
so,
you.
So yeah, I would recommend that we kind of dovetail on whatever you're doing upstream, obviously. We think that almost all the access on the lake is through the Lake Combi Association, through the people that live on the lake are via the dock encroachment permit and all that. And so if we communicate and try to drive the process, similar process, say, you're quarantined 60 days ahead of time, get your boat on. If it doesn't move, it's tied to that dock permit in some way. And then just say until this thing's over, you're not allowed to bring other boats in,
exactly.
right? And just sort of quarantine that and keep it to that level.
How is that monitored?
Well, whatever recommendation you want to make on monitoring, but that would be the approach we'd like to take.
And someone would be found in violation. What is significant fine for you? Do you think that would deter everyone else from doing it?
I think, you guys can come up with whatever value you want and just, people shouldn't do it, right? So,
Right.
No, but one person does it and we're kind of,
Yeah,
we're
that's
kinda
the
screwed.
risk, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate enough with the homeowners association at Combi as well as the Rod and Gun Club there, Lake of the Pines, that education seems to be the best driver. And that's really some of the only things that we can rely on. I don't know, when it comes down to the actual person who brings somebody in from another location, that's a whole different story that we got to think about. But again, there's not much NID has. There is not one single point of entry that we control on either of those locations.
Oh, okay.
Do you also represent the fishing and hunting club? No. Because, there's a 50-year waiting list to get on in that club, I think.
Well, I don't know if it's that long, but yeah.
But pulling that membership might be a good punishment.
I would think that'd be appropriate at least, if not something more strengthened. Also, I would, from my point of view, the key risk there is any kind of a fishing tournament or anything they would do.
Right.
I would lay off of all those things until further
Right.
notice, right?
Okay.
So that's something that's worth negotiating with them on.
And I will tell you also, if somebody's breaking the rules at Combi, I usually get a phone call from somebody. They just always call me.
Okay.
Threats on how it creates your infrastructure, I would aggressively publish
Promote that.
construction of the voting
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Hi, my name's Rick Fowler. I'm the operations manager at Lake of the Pines, which is Magnolia Dam. We're kind of a unique situation where we are an enclosed area with gated security, and we have this process in place. It's been in place for over 10 years for the quarantine. The little difference we have is it's seasonal at this time, and I would like some information if I could. It's 30 days in the winter, but in the heat of summer, it goes down as low as 2 weeks as long as it's been emptied. Hopefully that's still good. If not, we need to change ours to 30 days. We take a lot of effort to make sure that everything is quarantined, and we do use the tagging system. And if you would like some input on tags, there are tags that are easier to get around and make it look like they were tagged. We've gone through different iterations of tags, and we probably have could offer some help on a recommendation from our security department. Another one of my concerns is our water is seasonal through Magnolia Creek and some of the other smaller creeks, but we do purchase water through NID that comes from Lake Combi. I would like to know if there's a way we could set up some kind of a monitoring system on the creek that comes into our lake. We have sediment traps all around the lake where we take the solids out and keep those clean. But if there's a way on the golf course before it hits the lake, we could put in some kind of a trap that might hold water long enough to where we could monitor for something. If it would have to be pumped up out of Combi and make it all the way to us, but we would like to do everything we can to keep our lake pristine as possible. So if there's anything
Those are good questions.
you could offer on that.
Staff will have to work with you. Yeah.
Okay. But we're in full support of the quarantine. The minute we heard about it, we put in the 30, well, we've had the 30-day, but we actually closed the boat launch, and it's open now, but we're really strict with the quarantine. My concern is the heat of summer quarantine, should that remain 30? If you have any information on that, I'd love to get it.
Well, thank you for your comments. Okay.
You have a comment online.
We have an online comment from Steve. Steve, please unmute yourself and you're welcome to begin. There you go.
Hi. Yeah, I'm with SOS Marine Rescue. We've been certified with the WID system that was referenced, the water inspection database. We've been certified for inspections and decontaminations. We're just over by Lake of the Pines in the old Holiday Market, if you're familiar with that, on Combi Road. When we put a seal on, that means that it's been cleaned, it's been dried, it's been inspected, it's been decontaminated, and there is no quarantine period at that point. If you reference unless you guys know something different, that not from what we've heard, if you have a clean, dry, and inspected boat that's been decontaminated, then there is no quarantine. You can go to Lake Tahoe, get inspected and decontaminated at Lake Tahoe and other places. And if you have that tag, you should be able to go in without a quarantine, unless somebody here knows something different.
No, that is true. We know that. So if somebody really wants to get on the lake and doesn't want to do our 30-day quarantine, they do have the option to go get decontaminated, and we would accept that.
Yeah, we're not quite ready to roll out a decontamination program yet, but we are working on it. In fact, in Monica's presentation, there were a few options for different decontamination pieces of equipment. So we're not ready to make a recommendation, but it's good to know that Steve is out there, and we'll make contact with him. That's because ideally we would like a private party to do it, so we don't have to have additional staff for that as well. So Steve, we will be in contact. Thanks for your great comment.
I have one question for Steve. Steve, have you worked with the golden mussel?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a big, large decontamination program in Tahoe as well as Lake Berryessa. We've been in touch with both agencies. We may be able to get a decontamination unit from Tahoe, but I am curious to reach out to Steve and see what his program is, because it might be nice to leverage a local to do the work.
Okay. Are there other comments from someone in the audience? Yes, please come to the dais and tell us who you are and where you live.
Joyce Indercombe from Scotts Flat Lake.
Hi, Joyce.
Yes, I had a few questions. I
I don't think really everything's set yet, but you're working on it. I just wanted to say that a lot of the fishermen like to start early in the morning, which you've probably heard. Yeah, some as early as 5:30. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I'm wondering if my husband's boat has a free mussel pass on it. Now, I don't know if all that's changed.
You would still have to do a 30-day quarantine with us. But we don't know where you last launched. But we don't know that.
Okay, you know what, if you want to come up and chat, you can do that, but are you done with your comments?
Oh, I have a few
Joyce?
more questions.
He's with me.
Okay, well, we'll let her go through her questions.
Okay. Now, would this involve paddle boards or kayaks or canoes? So they're free to go
Exactly.
on the lake. Okay. Now, with the current pass, would that include the $50 to $70 extra for
Get checked.
that fee? Would it be included in the boat pass?
We're not inspecting.
Okay.
Who's inspecting?
Fishing game?
Well, no, if you want to get inspected and decontaminated, then you just go to a decontamination center. If not, then you come to us and we tag you for the 30-day quarantine. And then after the 30 days, which potentially it should be safe, then you can come on the lake.
And we'll be able to provide more information. This whole program's not complete yet, so I know that you have.
That's what I'm.
I'll reach out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring it out. It's still getting
It
put
is.
together. Okay. Okay, so I just kind of most importantly wanted to put that a lot of people like to fish and boat before 9 o'clock. And then there would be a big backup with everything getting inspected unless you put a lot of people to accommodate, you know. These are some of the things that are going through all our minds. But I know it seems it's all getting worked out.
We are working on it.
Yeah, I know. I had all these questions, but I know you're still working it all out. Okay.
So who's
Thank you.
making the rule that the lake don't open till 6 or 9?
Okay, sir, would you tell us your name, please? And
I'm Dave. Her
Dave.
husband, Dave Indercom.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Dave. That's
No,
okay.
it just, I'm on the lake some mornings when everybody's still in bed. And I'm off the lake by 8, 9 o'clock. So I'm gone. But I just don't understand all this mussel stuff because I don't have any on my boat. And I know I don't.
Okay.
Why do I have to have it inspected? It's an aluminum boat. It's only a 14-footer. It's not one of those ones that suck water in.
It doesn't, it's
if it's motorized,
it's motorized, it has.
Yeah.
It's a Johnson motor and I can't suck up no mussels. That's where I don't understand.
Well, I think that we're still working on it and we'll get some direction from staff.
But see, now they've closed the lake now.
Right.
Where I can't fish at all.
Correct.
And so nobody's saying when they're going to reopen again.
We don't know. As you've seen, this is all in process and we're trying to work with everybody best we can to
It's
come
just
up
going to end up where I don't fish there no more. You know, I don't care. You guys are the ones that are going to lose the money. I'm not. You know, I just won't fish there no more. I mean, I've done very well on that lake and I've had a lot of fun, but if I don't want, I'm not going to pay for all that stuff to have my boat checked. There's nothing there.
Well, I understand, but I mean, ultimately, the water at the lake is for our treated and irrigation customers.
No,
And recreation is just a piece of that because we have a lake with water. So bottom line is we have to protect our water and we have to protect our
No, I see you got a good point there, but I see a lot of boats out in Scotts Flat because my wife and I'll go sit there and go onto the beach and that stuff. I see registrations on boat. Nobody's doing anything about it. 2017 last year, I was seeing guys coming in there from all these other lakes. around
Understood.
there.
That's what we're trying to control. So
See,
thank you
and
for your
nobody's doing-
comments.
Yeah, but they've never done nothing.
I think I have both of your contact information from the email you had previously sent, so we'll reach back out, but those are great comments and we'll try to think of a way to
I mean,
accommodate folks in your position.
I can be on the water there in like 4 or 5 minutes and I like it. But if it comes to push to shove, I just won't launch there no more.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you. All right. Are there other comments?
Debbie.
Oh, there it is. Hey, Debbie.
Debbie Ticinci, Nevada City, not a farmer at the moment. I have a question about, you talked about the boats that are on the ball, you know, the ones that are there all the time. What about residents, Cascade Shore side? I know there's several that like come and go once or twice a day. I mean, there's no way they could be tagged. Well, I guess they could. Have you thought about how you're going to handle them? I mean, tagging them each time they come out.
They would have to be tagged each time they come in and out.
Okay, and then like a blue tag is available to them?
Exactly, because once they do their 30-day quarantine and they come in.
And they're on the blue tag.
Exactly, then they're on the blue tags and our camp host over there would, as they leave, would tag them.
I knew you had that under control. Well, so, kayaks and paddle boarders, you know, if the boat ramps are closed, are they totally out as well? On the Cascade Shores side, I know a lot of them go in, just not through the boat ramp.
They could still go through the, well, they could still go through the boat. They can come through the gates, the
Okay.
big black gates, that's fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, they'll be able to do that.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
We have one more online.
Okay. Thank you. Jody? Unmute, please.
There we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
Jody Ryan. I'm familiar with Rollins Lake. It doesn't seem like the presentation is quite over, and I know everybody has a ton of questions, but is there more to this presentation?
No, that's what I was trying to get us to. So there is only one last slide related to decontamination unit options. It was just to show the board what kind of options are out there yet. We do not have a recommendation, so I don't think we need to spend a whole
Not
lot
an
of.
action item, right?
No, this is not.
No, this is just a workshop.
We're just
Yeah.
looking
It's
for guidance.
informational. Right.
So, go ahead with your comments, Jody. I think this would be a great time for the board to hear.
I was just excited to hear the rest of the presentation. Never mind. The questions were getting me off track. So I thought I was lost in the shuffle.
Oh. No,
As you
your
were.
comments- Your comments are welcome at any time. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so are we complete? I know the decontamination options, we haven't covered those, but is it premature to cover those?
It is premature.
That's
to
what I
cover them.
thought.
It is, we just threw it out there just so you
Sure.
can see that there are options if that's the path we choose later on.
Okay.
Okay, so going forward, when can someone get a blue tag?
We're looking for some input on the winter.
On whether we're gonna
options,
do
and
winter.
then we'll finish developing our program. We will roll it out and inform.
But plenty of time to launch for the summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
So Dave could come in, put a tag on it, have everything ready. He'd be ready to go when
Correct.
we can get the program going.
Yes.
Hmm.
So how are we feeling about the winter options? My recommendation is not to not have the boat ramps open during the winter at this point.
I agree.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
It is unfortunate, but I
And the
think,
good news is, as this goes on and our friends at the state as well as other agencies learn more and more, we might be able to revisit this. So we'll keep it in the forefront of our minds. So with that head nod direction, we will finish moving forward with our program. We'll provide information back related to decontamination and we'll keep the board and the public posted. And great comments from the public today. Those are all valid items to keep in our minds as finishing developing.
and thank you, Monica, for doing those costs. I mean,
Yes.
when you look at the costs, it kind of makes the argument itself.
Yeah, that was a great point you brought up.
Thank you.
Very valid information. Yeah. And
I'm always the one looking at the money, just like she is.
I was going to ask her on the spot.
No.
I would have had it for you.
Yeah. A huge thank you to Sierra, Tina, and Monica,
Yes,
as well
thank
as
you all.
Peter. They've put in a lot of work on this, and it's one of those new things. So it does take a lot of research and diligence, and they are very protective of our reservoirs. So we're thankful for that because, as you've seen, it could cause millions of dollars damage.
So
thank you.
I'm totally agree. Shut it down for the winter. When we get it going for the summer, anybody found violating this?
Jail.
Right.
At the bottom of the dam.
Public stone.
Yeah, to the, from Lake Combi,
No.
someone might lose our boat, but we might,
Out of
as a
favor.
farmer, we could lose our whole
Infrastructure. Yes,
infrastructure.
that's right.
$24 million a year from hydro.
Mhm.
But the farmers and the food security from this local community, that's what we have at risk.
Right.
Correct, yeah. And we'll work with Dustin to better understand if any modifications need to be made to our dock permits out at Combi and what other tools we can utilize to ensure that we do have some enforcement authority over.
Can we choose
Great.
the jail?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on.
Thank you.
Okay, I would say let's go to the general manager's report, item 7.
All right. I don't have a whole lot to add except for the 2025 budget is available on the website. And if you have the opportunity, please take a look at the interactive link. So it's a new budget format, same one we used last year, but you can go into the system and look at different charts and those types of things. So huge kudos to Sandra and Corey. This is our last goodbye for Doug for this meeting. So we're, I know. So if you want to come up with something good he needs to do by the end of next week.
Something.
And that's all I had.
Okay, director's reports. Want to begin, Earl?
Couple things. I would like to request a coat rack.
Yes.
Correct. Yes, Ricky has made that request before.
I thought of it
Left
for
my office. but
every
I-
day for
yeah,
4 years.
I will-
I've made that request.
And you're always welcome to put your coat in my office, or
Right there.
we'll move one over. You can have mine. I don't need. I'll throw mine on the floor.
Okay.
Same
Yeah,
thing. it's
I have
awesome.
zero issues with that.
And as far as work for Doug, I have 3 things to be done in the next 6 business days. I would like basically an infrastructure evaluation to see where our critical maxes are, where our critical points are for both nature, vandalism, and terrorism. I
What's
would
the cost factor?
But if there's a tower out there that is a vehicle off the side of the road can hit and will take out our power grid, I'd like to put up some ballards, just an infrastructure study in that sense. I would like, if we could, a bypass study for Spalding, if we can figure out a way to make us more whole. I'd like us to become more self-sufficient versus relying on PG&E if it's humanly possible. And the last thing is that with the changing environment out there, if we could proactively look at whatever supplies, equipment, and materials that we're going to need in the next 6, 12 months, maybe purchase them now in case tariffs drop in.
They're doing that.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay,
All
good.
good ideas. We will report back.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Good comments. Hey,
I'm
Rich,
on it.
No, I'm gonna pass.
you're going to pass. Okay, Brad.
I was able to tour the high school farm. There's the school district owns
Lincoln?
was donated a farm. No, actually, this is Nevada Joint Union, so it's
Nice.
shared between Bear River and Nevada Union. And I was able to tour there with an eye to improving their irrigation infrastructure and getting a little bit more water. And Chip and I had a discussion about that. And it's very exciting to see progress out there. So that's going to be it's actually going to be a community. They're looking for community partners. So it's not going to be just a high school farm. They'd like to do a lot of different workshops, and they have big ideas. It's really cool. And I think NID could be a great part of that.
You're a harvest too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think all the organizations. I was able to tour Hydro, and it was a fascinating tour. It was cut short by work constraints, but I think we could. I was talking to Ricky about it. I think I could have done that crawled around in those plants for 2 days and just it was fascinating. So, and my last item, I was able to talk with the Higgins Fire Chief about hydrants, and I expect that. Did you already have your meeting? You did, and he was there.
Moving forward.
Outstanding. Cool.
We did. We had a meeting with most of the fire chiefs to discuss any concerns they have, also to help develop a plan with us and them to inform the public about what the hydrant system is for, and that it wasn't naturally designed to fight wildfires, but can be a tool to aid in that effort when they're smaller. So we will be bringing something back to the board of a memorandum of understanding at some point real soon related to hydrant maintenance.
Very good.
I was encouraged in my conversation with him. He has maps of every little puddle of water and when they're available seasonally, and they're doing a good job down in South County. They've mapped out every little bit that they can use in the event of fire. So
Nice.
Nice.
And I'm glad that NID is working with them to.
And thank you for bringing it to our attention. There are a ton of little fire districts. and
Yes, there are.
All through the cracks in our meeting, but Director Fowler was able to get a new one added on. So thank you.
Just by accident.
I know it was accident and we happened to talk the morning of the meeting. So it all worked.
That's great.
Perfect.
That's great. Thank you, Brad.
No report.
No report?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a brief report. I got to go with Brad and Pete to do our hydro facility tour. That was just like a high point. That was fabulous to see those and get down there and see those wickets. Now I know what PG&E is talking about when they talk about their wicket failure. Yeah, it's very interesting. So the hydro tour was wonderful, and thank you, Pete. That was terrific. I've had a number of constituent meetings and contact with constituents, both over the mussels and the fire hydrant concerns. Fire hydrants are top of mind for everybody, so I'm happy to hear about that, and we'll be looking forward to hearing what other things we come up with. And then lastly, I've also been questioned again about the excess property that we have and what the plan is, and was contacted by a couple people from the county and so on. So I'll be looking forward to whatever it is that we collectively decide to do so we can begin to answer some of those
I
concerns.
just reviewed an item, so plan on probably seeing that at the next meeting.
Wonderful.
Who
Okay.
at the county?
Thank you. I'll tell you offline. Thank you. And that's it for me. So are there any public comment to be considered or to be made about items that we're going to be looking at in closed session?
I do not expect any publicly reportable action coming out of closed session.
Okay, thank you. Is there any others? Okay. Pardon?
Yeah, we'll take a little snack.
Yeah, okay. With that, we are going to adjourn to our closed session, and thank you all very much.
Oh.